School Board Workshop Tuesday, September 20th, 2016 to order. I know Mr. Booth is here, so he'll be back.
He's right here.
He's right here, all right. So begin with our facilities update. Mr. Clinch, I'll turn it over to you, I believe.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board. This is the facilities update. We will be providing an update on two projects. The first project is the new high school at Boggy Creek, the Boggy Creek Road Area High School. And the other project is the Point Siena Class Wing Addition project. So for the new high school project, the highlights for this update will be a summary of the permitting and the site bus vehicular traffic as it relates to the future middle school, a cost comparison, status of bid packages, and a construction cost update where we are. But first, we're going to start with project goals and objectives. I'd like to introduce Mr. David Torbert and Joe Toth from our design professional, Schenkel Schultz Architecture.
Good afternoon, y'all.
Hey, Joe. Hey, Dave.
Nice to meet you, bud.
Nice to meet you, Quinn. And we've got some handouts of the presentation because I know sometimes it's a little hard to see some of the site plans on that screen over there, so hopefully make it a little easier for everybody. As Mr. Clint said, you know, as we've kind of consistently tried to do, if you go to the third, it will be the third page in the handout, we've kind of consistently tried to start every one of these updates with you with the summary of the goals that you all outlined from the very beginning of what you want us to accomplish. And again, it's just a way for us to kind of remind ourselves of what you told us you want us to accomplish with this. So I'm not going to belabor those because we've gone through them and you all are certainly familiar with them. So with that, we'll jump in right to the first topic past that, which is the site phasing permit summary. And you'll see on that slide, it looks like this. This site plan tells you a couple pieces of information. One, it is the site plan of the project that is being built. You'll notice that there is no middle school represented on this plan. So what you see on this plan is what is being built as a part of this project. You'll see that the site is divided into two parts. We've labeled the eastern half on the right-hand side of the site as phase one. That is really phase one permitting, okay? We purposely decided to separate the permitting for the site into two pieces. The reason for that is that the portion in phase two has wetlands on it that require mitigation, that require us to go through the Army Corps of Engineers. They have in recent months been a challenge from a time standpoint in terms of getting through that permit process. So rather than hold up the major construction of the building, the facility, waiting on that permit, we separated the site into these two portions so that we could accelerate and stay on schedule with the construction. So the permit for the phase one portion, the right-hand side of the slide, we actually have that in hand, and we are able to go forth and conquer, if you will, with respect to the construction of that portion. The permit for phase two has been submitted, and it's in the process of being worked through.
I got a question. Why isn't it just one of the water management districts, and why are the Army Corps of Engineers have to be involved?
I'm going to have to ask Mr. Moody to answer that question.
John, did you hear the question?
Sure. These are connected wetlands. They drain directly to East Lake Toho. So the Army Corps has jurisdiction under Section 404 permitting.
And typically, how quickly or how slowly does the Army Corps of Engineers move?
This permit process will probably take about 8 months.
From where we are today?
For the federal process.
From where we are today?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
And that was referenced in our June 21st board workshop. There was reference made to up to 8 months. So at that time, the information was laid out. Do we wait the eight months to start the project, or do we move forward now so that we can start the project and allow the permitting to catch up with us?
And one thing I want to make sure that I'm really clear about, the portion in phase two, there is not any question as to whether or not you can build upon it. What is in question is how much mitigation is going to be required. Okay, so there is no jeopardy in terms of not being able to build on that property. We just have to go through the process with the Army Corps to determine what is the amount that has to be mitigated. And that's why you see on the slide, you see the areas highlighted in yellow, which were on the original survey as the wetlands, and then you see the other white dashed line, which is sort of our best guesstimate at what the maximum could be. And I stress the word could be because we don't know until we get through further into the process with the Army Corps, and that is really when that will get defined down to what it exactly is.
Ricky?
Yeah. Are we going to make sure that our athletic fields are at the correct elevation so that we are not putting a $1.2 million turf and drainage system on this field in 5 years? I mean, look, I know the engineers are smarter than I, right? Or they know more than I about engineering stuff. But lots of old timers could have tell you what's going to happen in Celebration.
New timers too.
It's built right in the middle of a swamp, and I know that. But most of the Boggy Creek in this area, it has some good drainage. But I just wanted to make sure that we're not going to come back.
No,
I mean, putting that elevation.
The final once the mitigation is determined, the final engineering and elevations of those fields are set by John and his team to ensure that they drain properly. And all of those features. So those will all be taken care of. I mean, John, I don't know if you want to add anything to that conversation, but I'm not concerned that there will be an issue. As a matter of fact, at Celebration, John's team is the one that helped us address some of the issues there.
Okay.
So.
And Jay, just for your information, I sat down with John Moody a while back, a few months ago when I first saw this, and it's a long conversation, which we don't want to have here, but it might be worth a phone call.
John and I were scheduled to have that, and then something came up. So.
I mean, he can give you a really good
Is that right?
background on where it's coming from.
No, okay, I got it.
But to clarify in terms of scheduling, even though we know this is going to be a process and we can't determine exactly how long, we're thinking 8 months, it should not necessarily delay access to the student parking or the football field come August.
It's actually built into the construction schedule, the 8-month timeframe. So
just wanted to make sure that was on the
we
table.
get a permit within that 8 months, it does not affect construction schedule whatsoever.
Great.
And I'd also like to confirm, I don't believe there's any structures that are located in the Phase 2 area. So all the construction activity is relatively
there's
straightforward.
one
concessions building, that's
Okay.
a football stadium.
Yeah.
Okay. And a storm system for the parking area, pavement section, the field, and the associated components, field lighting and that type of thing.
Correct.
Okay.
And does this include more stacking than what we saw last time?
Well, no, it includes the same amount of stacking, and actually, when we get into the next portion of the presentation, we're gonna outline a little more specifically what that is. So if there's not any further questions, or if there are further questions on this, okay, all right.
So with the Phase 1 approval, then theoretically, because the middle school would be in that approval is part of the approval, or we got to go back for an approval at that time?
Well, when the middle school is designed, the final design, there will be more than likely some permit modifications, but I believe the drainage, the impervious area and all those things have been calculated into these ponds, so it won't be the full permitting process, but there will be a permitting component to it, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does.
And let me just add this, the Phase 2 area is going to be treated very sacredly in that we want to stay out of it, make sure that we don't do anything to impede our ability to get the Army Corps permit. So there are provisions included in the project to fence off that area, so that it would not accidentally be used for lay down, for a construction worker to go in there and get lunch, or vehicles to be parked or anything. It will be off limits.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay. So we'll move on to the next portion of the presentation, which is about the site bus and vehicular traffic in the future middle school. I'm going to let Joe walk you through that portion of it.
Okay. This is just the overall master plan. This now does include the middle school, but this is the same as what you've seen the past number of board meetings. This is just kind of get everybody's handle around, what the entire build out is planned for at the current time. Keep hitting the wrong button. There we go. As far as site and vehicular traffic, now, we've taken that middle school away again, and we're only addressing the high school. Right now, we have 59 bus stacking spots in the bus loop that you can see in the yellow right there. And we have 201 stacking cars for the parking lot. The traffic light is right here. You've got a 500-foot deceleration lane for the cars and a 450-foot deceleration lane for the buses off of Boggy Creek Road. That was worked with the county when we went through the compliance plan. We actually submitted a traffic flow for the high school with that compliance plan, and it was reviewed and approved by the county.
I got a question. I don't know if is there any link service on that portion of Boggy Creek Road that we're aware of? I mean, I don't know.
I wouldn't think so. Right?
I don't think there is, Jamie. I was just out there a couple weekends ago for soccer, and I don't.
Okay, I don't know. And
I'm not sure.
Is there
I
going to be a
couldn't
need?
swear to it, but I don't remember
You didn't
seeing
ride
it.
the buses?
No, I didn't ride the bus there.
Are we going to need to widen Boggy Creek at all over there?
Yes. Just like we need to widen up to
they?
I was gonna say we.
Does it need to be? No, okay, let me rephrase it. Does it need to be wide? Does it need to be wide? Have we started those conversations?
the whole
with the county?
road does from one end.
Is there a timetable or for the
Nope.
county to do it?
I don't believe it's in their current plan, but we could double check.
Got lunch with the county commissioner coming up, that could be part of the conversation. Okay, thank you.
We also have 761 parking spaces for the high school. Depending upon what you do with the middle school, your prototype middle school has about 180 on top of that, and the middle school that we were showing,
Joe, how many,
all kinds of problems with this.
how many parking spaces at the high school? Sorry.
761.
How does that compare to like a St. Cloud or a OHS?
I
know
don't
it's-
know those numbers.
Is
I
it-
I can only compare it to like Liberty or,
What's Liberty?
they're right around 725.
So that doesn't sound like a big increase for a school that's 50% bigger.
It's not 50%
What's
bigger though.
what's
It's-
Liberty?
25% bigger,
Liberty is,
2,400.
yeah.
Oh, is it that? I thought it was like
20.
22.
Well, it's about 2,400 students.
Okay, so it's 25% bigger, but we only have a small percentage
I
of.
would love to have some more parking, Jay.
I'm just, is
Work at the church.
this a mistake to be,
We're working on that.
or maybe it's not a mistake if Liberty's got 200 extra spaces.
We're planning for a lot of off-site dual enrollment with Valencia and UCF.
Okay. that's-
And
Well, and this school does have a little bit more walking community in terms of around it and that kind of stuff. During the day, I mean, kids don't drive to school like we did.
They don't?
No, they don't. It is interesting.
Okay.
And fully staffed, how many employees would be at the school? Instructional support, everything.
Normally, we plan for somewhere between 200 and
No, it'd be
250.
more than that, because you're talking about,
560,
no, he said 160.
160.
I would say probably closer to 2.25.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We normally plan for like 200 to 250.
So that leaves
Side-
500 for
sides.
kids?
So just a quick question, I think, to Mr. Thacker's point. Do we know, are schools that have similar sized parking lots for students, are they experiencing problems? Is Liberty good? Have we heard any issues? Are we fine?
I've not heard any issues about not having enough student parking.
Okay. Probably worth looking at those
That'd be worth
campuses
just
and
real
having a
quick checking with
conversation,
the,
Sure. we can
just
do
so we
that.
can anticipate if there is going to be an issue.
Absolutely.
Sure.
I mean, I've been going to the different schools, realizing, during the day, I've been to Liberty, there's always extra spots I
Yeah,
see
I've-
there. I always see
Yeah.
extra spots
There
at
are.
Celebration. I have not been to, well, I have been to Osceola, but I haven't noticed anything, so.
I've been
I'm
to Harmony a
hopeful-
bunch, and there's always extra
I'm hopeful
spots.
you'll find
St.
that
Cloud's
you've got-
different.
St. Cloud's the only one that really.
They just don't have this.
The St. Cloud just doesn't have
It just
the
doesn't have
parking
it.
space,
Yeah.
period. It's
Yeah,
just
and
always
I'd
tight.
look at a few, so don't just focus on Liberty, because there could be an anomaly with that school. So let's look at some other campuses as well and just see how we're doing as a whole with a square footage or student station to parking ratio
Yeah,
across
like I
our
said,
district.
I've been out to every high school during the day.
I'm looking on the map and I don't
I've
see
not
any.
seen
Yeah.
challenges with
Yeah.
parking.
I would think
St.
we're
Cloud
probably
has
good
parking
because of the
problems
trend,
with
but-
special events, but.
Yeah.
Okay. I think it's a good question, Clarence.
Clarence, can I add something to
Sure.
that? Just the geographic location of the school and the fact that it is a newer school may actually, make the, may entice the population of students that have that type of transportation for some of the magnet programs and things like that. So beyond a comparison with certain schools, you really need to think through whether or not this is going to be enough in the parking. It may be even difficult to estimate it because we haven't had anything like this before. With the programs that we're offering, the curriculum and some of the plans that we have, And add on top of that, the fact that we have a lot of free enrollment opportunities, from maybe even north of the border, of the county border. So it's definitely an issue that needs to be looked at, and I just have to think it through, not just look
Sure.
at what's going on with some of the other schools.
Sure.
What we can do is look not only at our district schools, because like you said, we don't have a program like this within our current programming, but we can look at a few of our schools of similar size in Orange County. So
Yeah,
we can do that.
because they may have learned something from this process.
Well, I would tell you, I mean, from the experience of having designed several of their high schools as well, they certainly have some that are challenged, that they have parking challenges at, but they have others where they have a plethora of empty spaces at too. So
Yeah.
it's honestly, it's a mixed bag.
So we know Orange County has some 3,000 seat high schools, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
can we find out how many parking spaces they have?
850 is what they designed for.
850.
So,
So we're already
But
90 short.
Well,
And do they count
but
the-
Ricky, I would also tell you, you can
Okay.
go to several of those schools and you'll find the parking lot a third to as much as a half empty too during the day. So that's just sort of a standard that they apply.
'Cause if I read this right, the 761 includes 60 for 59 for buses.
No,
No.
no, those are three separate numbers.
Yeah.
59,
Oh, I was writing that separate.
59 stacking
I've
for
read it
buses,
separate.
200 stacking
Okay,
for
I got it,
cars.
I got it.
And total parking for students is 761.
Got it.
Okay?
So hopefully there's adequate, because I mean, we don't want to change, but we also want to change impervious surface, water retention, all the other components that come with that, but let's make sure we understand what we're getting into with it.
That's a good question.
Okay.
Okay, so now with the future middle school back into place, you can see the, on the right-hand side, the orange, how the stacking occurs at the middle school. And there's stacking for 190, we actually have 198 parking on the middle school. But anyway, car stacking is at 199 cars if and when you decide to put the middle school in this configuration. The next thing you asked us to look at was the number of curb cuts for the entire facility. What we can tell you is that we had gone to the county back February the 8th. We presented to them a plan that pretty much was the plan you just saw with the 3 curb cuts in it. But we also took an alternate plan with the 4 curb cuts because of your concern, cars and buses being in the same road. It's not really the greatest thing in the world. So really, you should have 2 access points for the high school and 2 access points for the middle school. The issue with it is we just don't have enough length on Boggy Creek Road to be able to put those 4 curb cuts in there. This is what we presented as an alternate, and we were denied. We can go back and try again, but did want you to see that we did try that.
What do you think's better?
Well, if we had the magic
If
wand,
we had the
we'd do
magic
this.
wand per, yeah.
Okay, well then-
You should have 2 curb cuts for each school you do.
Okay.
You know, you should have a traffic light for each school you do, but
Right.
the issue
What's
is,
the
I
rationale
don't know
for
how to make.
denial the
that-
distance
that was
between
my
curb
backwards.
cut 3 and 4?
The distance the distance from the development, the road that goes into the development to the east, the distance from that intersection
I see.
and where it's
Spring Lake
proposed,
Village.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Here's that, what is that over there? Spring Lake Village intersection, right on the end. I'm sorry, this thing isn't really showing up.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you're talking about.
But if you remember, we discussed, we didn't have anything graphically, but we discussed that this is a private drive and they have a gated community. And so we can't get far enough down this road to be able to bring in an access point here. We did look at the possibility of purchasing this Spring Lake Village property that I guess they came to you as, but we just couldn't really get there. Where we really would need to get to in order to have it is this point up here. But we'd be so far deep into the private community that it's just not possible.
Yeah.
And we need to be 450 feet from this intersection over, which is where we were showing.
Further than 450 feet.
Yeah, which is where we were showing this curb cut right here is 450 feet from that
Do we
intersection.
even have a projected date to build that middle school?
No. So, and to that point, I mean, when that time comes, there may be a different attitude in the county, and you may have a better shot at getting something different then than you do now.
So what's the chances of getting that fourth curb cut in the future when we move forward with the future middle school?
Yeah, there's no way for me to handicap that or even guess. A lot of it is going to depend upon, the prevailing attitudes of the people of the county at the time.
So if there were a warrant study that were completed, and I know that's more for traffic signals, but is that a possibility?
Don, do you have a feel for that?
Separation requirements for Florida Green Book, and they haven't changed forever.
Yeah.
So you need the separation. The issue is controlled and uncontrolled. You have a controlled access signalized from the high school. The middle school doesn't meet the separation for another signal, therefore be uncontrolled. So that's the issue we have there.
When the middle school is built, I'm assuming they're gonna start and end at different times. Is there a way to move people from the middle school to entrance number 2 or exit number 2?
That's the way it should be solved.
Utilize,
Yeah. Different start time.
you utilize 2 for one and 2 for another. One of them just happens to be the same one, but you have alternate start times.
Different times, yeah.
And you
Is
may
that
put
the
number
way you-
4 in now, but it's never at the right place.
I know. Is this, the way you've drawn this, is there a logical connection point to get from the middle school to entrance two?
I see what you're saying.
I mean, without going, I don't know that you can go through the bus loop.
Something, but.
There's something to the bus loop. You understand my question? I didn't ask it very
No,
well.
I did understand that. I do understand it.
We'd have to look at it, but there is this main road here, and somehow that road comes over, and then I don't know, we'd have to look at it because we'd be crossing over the bus loop.
Right.
I mean, what you're asking, I think, could be accomplished, Clarence. It would require some modification of how the bus loop and the middle school drive, are configured. I don't think it's a major reconfiguration.
Do y'all think that's something we should look at?
I do. If you're not gonna get that fourth cut, then you probably should try to figure out some way to get out on 2 of your areas over there. It doesn't look like it's gonna be too challenging. I said that. I should have said that. I jinxed the whole
It might
thing.
just, it might just be a matter of tipping the bus loop so that stopped.
You're good at that.
I know, I do it all the time.
It's just high-tech stuff.
So that this basically can connect and just keep on going through,
Yeah.
and then
Become kind of an
there's
interior.
going to be a cross
Yeah.
drive, or maybe, I don't know, we'll have to look at, the issue is going to be the bus loop, and how to get to the bus loop without interfering
But then
with
that
cars.
was- Somehow that'd be going across your number 3 entrance. You see that?
Yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm saying. We gotta look at it.
Or you put speed bumps in any of that stuff to calm the traffic down so kids don't run
Exit
on that
two.
campus? Is there any talk about
I
that?
didn't figure it out.
Traffic in there.
Speed humps, what they're called?
Standard.
Well, I don't know that we've got, I mean, we don't, that's not something that we've got in the plans right now.
Like
It's not to say
Celebration
that-
open without, with Celebration
Yeah.
has
I'm sorry?
it. Celebration open without them, and Celebration has it.
It seems to me the board would like you to take a look.
Okay.
We will do that.
We want you to redraw the site, but take a look.
Okay, we will do that. Okay. The next portion of the presentation is about the construction costs, so I think Mr. Dotson is going to pull up the chair and walk us through that.
I didn't want to crowd the table before I had to, so.
That's it.
That price, you're already part of that table.
Yeah. So these numbers here are pretty much what you've seen before. They really haven't changed at this point in time, pretty much from our last meeting that we had. The budget that we established at the schematic design was the $75.7 million, and that was at schematic design. We did put out an early site package. That early site package, the value was about 9.7, which leaves us at about 66 million, still on the table for the shell package and then the final build out. So kind of where we are right now, we did put out the shell package. We put that out to bid, towards the end of August. Numbers just came back last Thursday. So we're in the process now of de-scoping, going through those numbers, seeing where we are, and then our plan is to bring a GMP for the shell package to the board in like we had in October. Yep.
Are you seeing anything in those initial returns that's scary?
So nothing that's scary at this point. I mean, in Clarence, they were just, we just got the numbers in. There was some variances. In some, there was quite a few. Some of them were real tight, which makes you feel good too.
Okay.
So, but not seeing anything that's totally out of line at this point.
Okay.
But our plan is to go ahead and deliver a design development estimate at the same time we submit the GMP for the shell package. So what that'll do is that'll confirm where we are further along in the process. Now that the design's further along, we'll get kind of the estimate of where the entire package should lay, and then that shell package, how does that compare to where we currently are? And when you add in the early site as well. So our plan is to deliver that on the 29th of September.
And how was the coverage on the shell package?
Coverage was good. I mean, we had a minimum of 3 bidders, except for on the MEP side. The MEP side was a little on the light. In no case did we have less than 2. But because the only thing we're doing in the shell package for MEP is really the deep underground rough-in. That's all we're doing. So there wasn't a whole lot of interest there, but for the most part, I'd say we got 2 to 3 bidders in the MEPs, but on the concrete and structural steel, which was the majority of the package, and the windows, we actually got very good coverage. Okay. Next slide.
So,
You want to discuss this one?
yeah. So we were asked to perform a comparison of the cost information that you just heard from Eric relative to your school, Boggy Creek High School, and the recent high school that your neighbor to the north is currently in the middle of constructing. And so you see on the screen, and you have in the handout sort of the detailed breakdown of that comparison. The bottom line with everything I'm about to say is that on just about any way you want to look at these numbers and compare them, what these numbers say is that your school is more cost effective, somewhat more cost effective than what the Orange County High School is being built. So just to walk you through the table real briefly, you can see highlighted.
Dave, just
yes,
a little background, I'm the one who asked for this, because of some of the questions I've been getting around, I thought
Sure.
this might
No,
be
this is
useful,
No, this is really good, Clarence.
useful to all of us. So, sorry to.
Oh, no worries, no worries. So highlighted in the red column is your school, and we've tried to lay out all of the pertinent information, the construction costs, and then highlighted in the blue column is the West Orange Relief High School in Orange County.
You guys doing the design of West Orange?
We did.
Who built it?
Warren Smith is building it.
Did a CM?
It is done as a
CM,
CM, yes. And one thing, one point of clarification I do want to make point is that you may or may not know that part of that project was an agreement between the Orange County government and the school board to build an off-site football stadium and field house. Those costs have been factored in order to make this an apples-to-apples comparison, because you all are building those components on your site. So those are included in this analysis here. So this first pass at it, up at the top, you'll see we've added in under the Orange County what I'm calling a normalization cost, and that's to account for the fact that there's about a year's worth of time difference between when their project was bid and when your project is bidding. That's to account for inflation. So you can see what the bottom line numbers are there. Right below that, you have the size and capacity comparisons. You all are doing a slightly larger school in terms of square footage and student stations. And then the important information is in the lower section, which says that essentially, based on that analysis, you all are spending about $2,300 less per student station than Orange County is, which translates to about $14, a little over $14 a square foot less.
What is the state's metric where they say a cost per high school student station should be now with the DOE?
30.
Yeah, it's 30,549. I looked at the chart right before I left the office. Now, be mindful that cost per student station is an all-inclusive cost. That includes FF&E, includes all of the costs.
Okay.
This is just construction cost. Okay. So when I say that, any way you look at it, even down at the bottom left-hand side of this table, I took a pass at putting the numbers together without even trying to account for inflation, just taking the raw cost data. And even when you calculate those numbers, your school is about $1,500 a student station less expensive, or about $7.50 a square foot less than the Orange County. And then the last version of the comparison is, I think it's an important factor to note that the Orange County School is only being built on just less than 65 acres. You all are developing 75 acres. There's almost 10 acres worth of difference there that you all are spending the money to develop 10 more acres than they are.
Does that include the middle school site?
Yeah, that includes the whole campus on yours. And so if you take those extra 10 acres of development out of your costs, again, just to try and get to apples and apples, it says again that you all are doing a more cost-effective job, both on a student station as well as a square foot basis. So,
Thank you, Dave.
That's great, thank you, appreciate it.
That's very helpful.
And what is the FF&E in the end, what's that total gonna be?
John, what do you have budgeted for FF&E? I don't recall that off the top of my head.
I'm not sure what it is. I think it's about 5 million.
5 million, okay.
What does that do for student station?
That pays for
Well-
desks and, that pays for.
No, I know what it is. I was just curious where that,
Right, where's it put it?
where's it? We're still under the 30 at that, I think.
Yeah, you will be, yes.
Yes.
I don't know the exact number.
I think it's about
Mark will get that information and give it to the board this week.
1,800 a student station
Yeah.
or something like that.
17.
Yep.
Mhm.
17.
Yeah,
Okay.
16, 19. I see.
Thank you.
I went to Osceola
If
High
it's
School,
5
my
million.
math's not that close.
Under 30.
Yes. Yep. Thank you
This
very
is
much.
just the status of the bid packages, which we pretty much already talked about. The early site package already went out. That second one should be shell package. But that's what we're doing right now. We're in the process of vetting those numbers, and we'll be providing those at the end of September. And then we get to the final package, which is the build out, and that at that point we're going out to bid the end of November, and then submitting our GMP the middle of January, and looking for board approval by the middle of February. So that should all be in line and keep the process moving where we have the shell package. That work will be ongoing, and then when we put this out to bid, it'll still give us enough time to secure those items before we need them, and it'll be bought out in February.
And Eric, what are we doing for outreach to ensure that we have good coverage for the build-out package, the bid package 3?
So that's a good point, Mark. We talked about that a little bit last board meeting, last workshop, and we are involved with the foundation as well as getting some more participation, holding some outreach events, which has been great for the foundation as well. So we're doing that. We are advertising, and we're talking to subcontractors constantly and trying to increase the awareness of the project, and that's the big thing.
And do we think the Thanksgiving holiday will affect our bidders in any way?
No, we kind of planned it around that,
Right.
and we actually had talked to Joe and Schenkel Schultz, and we talked about getting those documents a little bit earlier, so that way we can get them out a week earlier and give everybody an extra week. And so it was kind of planned right around the Thanksgiving holiday and the winter break as well.
You're not going out to bid actually until after Thanksgiving.
Correct.
Like the Monday after Thanksgiving, so it's not in the schedule for bidding.
So it bids right between the two holidays. And then the groundbreaking, and so I think we, at this point, we have that scheduled. It was for the 19th of October. Should be, hopefully it's on everybody's calendars. I know, it's not easy. It's not easy
Don't
getting
even
on.
tell Tanya
I
that.
thought it was
No.
on the 18th.
Yeah.
You know how challenging this has been. She's
I
done a
literally-
very
I
good
was
job
checking
trying
my
to pull this
schedule before you
together.
said that. I'm like, I sure hope
We
they
found
got
out
this on
which
my schedule
district
right.
this high school is
It's
in.
on my schedule.
That was not easy getting that date
Is it 5
coordinated.
or
That's
is
why I
it
was
2?
checking.
That's why we got you. If
right on
everything
the
was
line.
easy, we wouldn't need guys like you.
It's
There
in
you go.
District 5.
Is it District 5? The line is across
Yeah.
the-
I think most of the students will probably fall in District 2, but it's District 5.
It's in Osceola County. We all represent Osceola County.
I
Well, he
am
was
so
asking
proud
me.
to hear you say that.
I've been elected countywide twice, Buckaroo.
I don't care about that.
Just checking.
We did work closely with Mr. Clinch and kind of went through the agenda for the groundbreaking ceremony. And so we are asking for some participation from the board and Dr. Pace from you as well. And that's for the opening remarks. And then Mr. Thacker, I think you've got community pride.
See if I can come up with something.
Don't wear an OHS shirt, that means.
Wear my storm
Dr.
jacket.
Pace,
I won't have that on either.
when do you start trying to come up with a name and a mascot and the colors and all that?
Typically, we wait until we get the new
The
principal on
principal,
board.
but when is
which
that?
I'd like to advertise in February and potentially bring somebody on board April. July 1st is typically the day, but I'd like to kind of get that started so that then we would have the last couple of months of the school year to get students and the community really involved in that process of coming up with the name, the mascot, the school colors, those types of things. So that would be
Could I-
my
I'd just like to
request down the road to the
Kelvin
board.
Soto School for
Yeah, it's
Academic
Kelvin Soto
Excellence.
School for Academic. I just want to make
I
a
think we're already
suggestion
getting- I think we're
here
already
in this
committed to
open
a
public
name.
meeting, so I won't forget. So that maybe I know Narcoossee means little black bear, and so there was some, we did the black bears because just a suggestion that maybe we reach out again to the Narcoossee Historical Society, the Osceola County Historical Society, and see if there are some significant events or names or something that we could pull together and create a mascot or create colors around something that happened historically there. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Maybe
I
there
think
may
that's an
not be. I
excellent-
don't
no,
know.
I think that's an excellent idea. I appreciate that. We'll certainly explore that.
And I think the
route.
Narcoossee chapter is very involved.
Okay.
So it's maybe a good or bad thing. I don't know.
Are you saying that because this is built like on Booth property or something?
No, actually, Mr. Bateman's property.
Yep. Oh, I could think of some names.
It could be the Brangus cow. That's what they raised there for years. I don't know if that would fit.
We have longhorns.
Got that.
So last but not least, the last slide is just one of the more current renderings of what the new campus will look like. So.
It's good.
So pretty.
And KUA or OUC?
KUA.
They're going to cover the parking lot with solar panels, right? So we're going to have covered parking,
Yep.
solar panel energy for the
We
school,
have a
right?
meeting with them next week to talk about various options.
Okay.
I do want to let you know that we did mobilize. So Junior Davis is on site. They're staking the ponds. They're staking the silt fence. And so we have mobilized and should see some heavy equipment on site Wednesday and Thursday of this week.
Great.
Thank you.
Just a quick question, the gym, is that front wall has no architectural element to it? Like no stone or
I was
anything
gonna
there?
ask that painted, what do you call that brick stuff in the back?
They were gonna put the
The
Seminole
form
logo
liner.
on it, but after Saturday's
Can you
game,
do
they
something
decided
up
not
there?
to.
It looks like, I never noticed that big wall, I noticed it too, and as soon as I was gonna ask you later.
The brick is actually on the front, and this is on the side, but to your point, this is the Boggy Creek Road. We'll take a look at that.
Okay. Yeah, I know it's been brought up a number of
Yeah,
times.
yeah.
It in this picture, for some reason, it overpowers the
Maybe
site.
a nice mural of Kelvin.
With a frog.
I actually think
It's
we
the
have
brick.
that's a render.
We'll
We'll
note
take
the
care of it.
comment and we'll make
Yeah.
sure that we take a look
Sure
at it.
that it's not flipped where the entrance is on it right there. Based on,
Is the entrance on the right?
I think it's supposed to be on the right, guys. I'm not for sure about that. And the reason why I'm saying that,
Yes. So, let us go back. I think our render, we'll go back, we'll make sure we got it.
The whole building gets
anatomically
turned
correct. It
around,
looks
is that
like
what you're
the building got turned sideways and.
that glass part, I think,
Didn't
goes
catch
to
it.
the right.
Okay, gotcha.
We'll get it.
Maybe why we've never noticed that big blank
I don't think it does look like
yellow
other
wall.
renderings.
It's a draft of the final.
That's
Gotcha.
perfect.
I got a quick look. I'm just looking at this. The building we're talking about, right, the big one to the far left, the rooftop. Is there any value from an educational or environmental perspective in making that roof so that you can put a garden up there and we can do some horticulture and potting? I mean, we got a lot of roof space there.
Got it in the
Well,
back.
you do have your terrace gardens.
In the back.
I'm just looking at a lot of space. I mean, that's like a half an acre roof space up there.
It is, Jay, but I mean,
It's gonna be-
you could do that, but there's a
it's
lot of
a lot of-
expense involved in it.
Right. For all of the structure to hold all
Okay,
that up.
okay. That's
There's a lot of
We want
expense.
to bury Reedy Creek again, too.
Do we want to, what about putting solar panels? As much as the-
Now, that's a possibility, and certainly if there's some KUA wants to participate, I mean, that's something that could be certainly looked at, whether it's hot water, solar hot water heating or photovoltaics or something, that could be looked at, but again, the panels themselves, if you're in a position where you have to purchase those, I mean, that can get very pricey.
No, I
as
understand
well.
that, but
So-
I'm just looking at all that rooftop.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot of space. Okay.
But the horticulture spots are designed to be close to the classrooms because they will serve as
I
learning
understand.
spaces,
And
not
also,
just
I mean, relative
decorative.
to what Dave said, it's a lot more expensive, from a structural
Yeah.
perspective, but for solar panels, just solar panels.
Any other questions, board?
No, ma'am.
Thank you all very much. Thank
you. Thanks, guys. Good job.
Yeah,
Mark.
Thank you,
Dr.
guys.
Pace. Dr. Pace, why
Yes,
don't
sir.
we see if there's any solar grants to purchase those panels for us?
Mark is working on that.
I'm
That's
not
why he's got a
suggesting, it's not
meeting
just,
set up.
well, I'm not
And our
gonna
new
say,
energy coordinator will be brought to the board for approval at our next
I'm
meeting.
not convinced that KUA is that astute when it comes to solar. I wish I was saying something otherwise, but.
Let's give him a good chance.
That ought to help develop the partnership.
Celebration community
Hey, Dave?
for attorneys. Tim, helicopter pad for celebration board member community. Helicopter pad for celebration board member community.
Exactly.
I've got a quick question.
Thank you, Jim.
Something that I can do with this.
Okay, all good, it's all good.
Hi, guys. Tom, Michelle, thank you. Good to
See you guys.
Thank you all.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Tom.
Okay, the next project, the
thank you.
last project that we'll be providing an update on is the Point Siena High School Class Wing Addition. And the highlights that we'll be presenting for this presentation will include a status of our program verification and where we're at with the CM selection process. And Mr. Davis will lead us through that. Thank you.
I'm supposed.
You okay, too?
My leg fell asleep.
Well, you can't sue anybody, you're the attorney.
Yes, I can sit down. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm supposed to be meeting with them. That's supposed to be
Okay,
a couple weeks ago, but yeah, I'll check.
Take it away, John.
All right. Last time we were up here, we gave you a quick presentation on where we were on the addition. Right now, we're still on schedule for the plans to be completed by the end of November. The construction manager is going to be selected by September. Well, we have the shortlisting.
Who's the short list?
Well, it's scheduled for tomorrow to review the booklets.
Oh,
and
okay,
we-
okay.
We should have the approval of the CM by October the 18th.
How many CMs submitted?
8. The GMP is scheduled for December, and the construction is scheduled to start in January with completion by the end of June.
Okay.
We did have a meeting on September the 9th with all the departments and the architect to go over the programs that need to be in there and the scope of what needs to be in the building to meet the programs.
John, is there enough parking to accommodate the extra space?
Yes.
They have plenty of parking.
Point Siena High School has plenty of parking.
You would know. I do.
The addition will contain 475 student stations because we're putting 4 science labs on the second floor, and they take the space of 5 classrooms. As a second project, we've identified a space in the building that can be divided into 2 classrooms to gain those 25 student stations back. So we will have a total of 500 additional student stations at the school. We also have 2 double CTE labs on the first floor. They'll have roll-up doors going into those. They'll also be designed so in the future we can put the wall back up between them and get 4 individual classrooms out of those. And they can go back and forth. The hole's designed so we can have a wall put in and a wall taken out almost over a weekend.
I got a question about that. So if we're doing that, and with the, with the onset and push, everything's got to be digital assessments, are we developing this under the premise that we can create some of these rooms into a huge testing center, and we need testing centers, so we're not occupying other portions of the campus?
At this point, no, not for these spaces, but if you'll, I'll show you the floor plans in just a minute. That gives you the opportunity to possibly do that in the CTE areas, depending on what program is being housed in the CTE. Once again, this is the existing school, and this gives us some of the architectural elements that we're trying to pick up on the addition. Currently, we've narrowed the elevation down to this elevation, and we're looking at a metal roof to go with the rest of the school. And we also have an option with a flat roof. And we're going to be bidding both of them out to see which one. We know the flat roof is cheaper, but we're going to bid out the metal roof just to see what the alternate price would be if we wanted to go with the metal roof. The metal roof has some advantage in the long-term life of the building. It actually will cost less over the long term with maintenance and energy on it. But it does have a higher upfront cost. Than
What's usually the cost differential, 5%, 10%?
Well, right now it's we're between 100 and 150,000 is what we're anticipating the metal roof to be, but we're going to bid it to find out exactly what that number is.
And it's not just the metal roofing, the sheeting itself, it's the structure as well, to design the truss accordingly to receive the metal roof, the sloping.
General question. This is 2 stories, right?
Yes.
So, yes, sir.
I don't know anything about construction, but the new high school we're building is 3, is it?
Yes.
In the classrooms.
Is it, do you save money if you've got the same number of square footage in 3 floors as opposed to 2, or not?
Not necessarily if you're doing the same square footage spread out over 3 floors instead of 2 floors. There's potentially a little bit of savings because you're doing a smaller foundation and a smaller roof, but you're doing more exterior walls that way and more vertical circulation with the stairwells.
And part of our goal this time, remember, too, was about timing, to be able to modify an existing wing plan that we already had on the books as opposed to starting over from ground up, which would cost money and time.
Yep, that's fine.
But we still wanted to build in the flexible space here, just like we've done in our new high school, to allow the school some flexibility. And the principal and the curriculum department prioritized the CTE space in the science labs over testing labs.
And this is the floor plan. The 4 science classrooms are on the 2nd floor on the bottom side of the building, and they occupy the same space that 5 regular classrooms were, and that's where we lost the classroom. The other 5 classrooms on the other side are just general classrooms. On the bottom slide, bottom floor plan, which is the 1st floor, the 2 classrooms on the bottom side are CTE rooms, and they're designed so you can put a wall up in those openings and turn those back into 4 classrooms again. Or as to
John, is that on the fly, or is that a minimal permanence?
It will be a permanent. We found that the movable walls are quite expensive to put in the first place, and you may move them once in 5 years or something. But these walls are designed with a header coming down below the ceiling, little wing walls coming in from the side. So all we have to do is put an infill wall in, and then that can come back out again, and do it almost over a weekend. Either put it in or take it out. So it's not a real extensive thing to convert it back over. We don't anticipate doing that on a monthly basis. That may be done every 2 or 3 or 5 years, but it does give you that option. And the teaching wall for those 2 spaces will be on each end. We'll have 2 teaching walls, so they'll both have a teaching wall if you divide it up. And if you don't, you just have the opportunity for 2 locations for the students. But to Jay's point, that could be, if you needed to, be an open space to do some additional testing in if you needed it. But those spaces also have roll-up doors that go out to the south side, which is next to the building that houses the trades program in the school. So it's in close proximity to it for those. We are looking at one option. It was brought up in our meeting on the 9th. What happens if we move the mechanical spaces from the right-hand part of the building to the left-hand side? It gets them closer to the chillers. And right now we have a potential of $50,000 to $60,000 savings if we do that change. So the architect right now is investigating to doing that, and right now we're leaning towards getting that done. So, because the chiller is going to be on this end of the building, and with the mechanical room on that side, we'd have to run all the chill water pipes we can cut out those runs for both the first and second floor, and that they anticipate that that's a $50,000 to $60,000 savings by doing that.
Quick question, why wasn't that thought of initially?
Well, because this is a reuse of the two plans we've already done, and on the other two schools, the chiller was located on that end of the building. But this one, because of the way it's oriented, the chiller's gonna have to be on the other side. So they're looking at making that change.
That's a fair answer.
And we just want to point out too that this will be a swing chiller initially. We're looking at a larger scale central energy plant project at Point Siena High School. It's one of our priority 1 locations. So we're currently working through a chiller replacement at Zenith. And we plan to pull the better of the 2 chillers and bring that chiller to Point Siena for the initial startup of this building, and then tie it in at a later date when we do the larger central energy plant project.
Okay.
So I assume if that's kind of in the thought process, we're putting those chillers and the lines on the right side of wherever close to that central plant.
Yeah,
I mean, we're not going to put them all over here in the central
No,
plant.
the central plant will actually be, if you're looking at this, a little further up on the site. We have, we didn't include the site plan in on this one, but if you remember last time, we had the 2 buildings side by, well, the chiller plant was just to the north of that second building. So we have room, and our temporary chiller will be on this end, the west end, so that when the lines that are coming out to hit the temporary, when the permanent's available, we just terminate it from the temporary and extend them on out to the permanent chiller. This building takes about 100 tons of chilled water, and the temporary chiller we're looking at is 120 tons, so we have the capacity to handle the building.
So when we do the future CEP for the school, we'll add the additional 200 tons at that time to pick up both classroom wing additions.
And right now, we're on our budget, and we're on schedule for this project. And at the next workshop, we'll bring you another update where we are at that time.
So one of the last, one of the comments made at our last workshop regarding this was a conversation with the principal, and I saw it at the very beginning on the slide, but the conversation about what they wanted, what you thought you wanted, and where the balance was. And I know that on one of the bullet points it said that on September 9th you met with the principal, team, design, so on and so forth. Is everyone 100% on the same page? I mean, were they voluntold that they should like this? I mean, what's your general?
I didn't even go to the meeting.
Okay. So it wasn't Michael, were they voluntold?
I didn't voluntold anybody.
Michael wasn't there either, but Tim was there. No, it was we encouraged everybody to speak their mind and tell us exactly what they wanted. And if they didn't bring an issue up, we did, because we wanted to get it settled brought out in that meeting and get everybody's opinion on it. We really don't have an opinion what needs to be in there. Our job is to make sure that everything is there that we need in the building.
Right.
So they're telling us what they need, and we're going to accommodate them.
But I don't.
We had things in our list that they didn't bring it up, and we brought it up to get some input in it.
What I don't want to have happen, so as all of us, and you guys included, is for me to be on the campus at some point in time and somebody say, yeah, well, we really didn't want it this way, we wanted this. We really were scared because the assistant superintendent, or whatever the case might be. I just want to make sure that we really have good feedback, and I know we want to capture as many student stations as possible. I know that there's the CTE labs and the other components that were brought in. I just want to make sure that really we're capturing what the spirit of the conversation was last time.
Absolutely. One of the things that Mr. Meacham has asked for us to look at, and Mark and John are working toward that, is to try to tie in some renovation of a couple of CTE spaces that they currently have with the construction of the new wing. So that is something that we're looking at, and to try to accommodate and meet both of those needs.
And does that marry in the conversation we had last time about making sure that as we get all excited about what we just looked at on the northeast side of our county, that as we're rolling out expansions and new programmings across the county, that we're looking at equal opportunities with each one of those,
yes,
providing the same type of programming opportunities for every high school. So, I mean, you know, some are going to be different, distinct,
right,
and they should be.
We're not going to have
right,
like
and
the
should
same
be.
career
right.
academies at each school, but to make sure that there are equitable
right.
opportunities.
Yes.
Moving forward that meet the needs and interests of those specific communities.
Sure, and we feel like we're heading in that direction.
We do.
We don't want students, as you, I know I'm preaching to the choir, so I'm just sharing my heart here. We don't want students in the east side of the county feeling like, well, man, if I really wanted this, I should have moved to the west side or whatever. I feel like I don't have this opportunity because
they would say that the opposite.
Fine. You get my point. Thanks, Booth.
Well, also, we spent a lot of time on programming of the high school, the functions of the room and how they're laid out. Those were our guidelines for this edition, for the general classrooms, for the science rooms, and for CTE labs. So we started with that point, and then we had to adjust it a little bit because of size. The rooms are a little smaller here, but all that effort that Dr. X and his staff put into the high school, we were able to use that as a starting point for this one. So we're trying to get the same program of making the spaces as flexible as possible for the programs that might go in there.
Okay, so let me end then by saying thank you. Appreciate that.
The program
Team's done a great
verification
job.
started with, can we use this prototype? Is this a candidate for reuse? And if the answer would have been no, we would have gone to a custom design to accomplish all the CTE requirements. And as Dr. Pace mentioned, so by being able to use this prototype, we're able to pick up a lot of time, a year earlier. And it's predicated by the fact that we can incorporate the CTE programs that we want to support at the school. So part of that, in addition to the flat roof versus the metal roof, the bid alternate, we're looking at including other bid alternates for the construction lab, the culinary lab, and the health services lab. And provided that we can accommodate that within the $6.5 million, we will attempt to incorporate those components into this project as well.
Okay.
I know I'm going to probably hate myself for asking this question. And y'all are all four going to hate me.
What are we going to do at Osceola High School?
No, since this is, no, that's next. I won't hate myself for that one. Since we do kind of know this, and it's not a lot of moving parts, it doesn't seem like in this project, is this one, you and I talked to some, that makes any sense to look at from a hard bid perspective? And I know the issues with hard bid versus CM at risk. I'm just asking the question. And I don't have an opinion.
No, I think it's a great question.
I would never have a problem with that question.
Typically for a hard bid, you want something that has a very straightforward scope of work. And this does have some complicated components in that we're placing it on an existing school site. A better candidate for a hard bid would be a greenfield site where there's less chance of unknowns coming up. So there is a greater chance on this type of project and a renovation project, those type of projects where unforeseen conditions can come up. And when that occurs, it's a change order. And hard bids are very unforgiving to changes.
I would just caution you as well that Poinciana High School, I believe, and John, correct me if I'm wrong, was the last big high school that we did a hard bid on.
Yes.
And it was a disaster in terms of scheduling and legal issues down the road, as well as in the Poinciana High School auditorium that was added 6-7 years ago. Same thing, that was hard bid, delayed, change orders.
In fact, it was just closed out a few months ago.
Well, and I don't recall, maybe we have, if this board, these 5 board members have had a conversation about the difference between CM and hard bid at some point. I know previous board we had. I'll speak for myself, and I would suspect I probably am pretty close to most people around the table, is when there's an opportunity to explore a hard bid and it is the right move for that type of project, my general opinion, and I think would be everybody's, is we want to look at that.
Absolutely.
We don't want to be pigeonholed into using a CM approach if that isn't necessarily the right approach for the right project. This dialogue is exactly what I think Mr. Thacker's saying is, are we exploring it? Is it the right fit? Don't just keep going CM at risk and then forget that there may be an opportunity for the right project at the right time with the right scope, that a hard bid would be the right approach. Obviously, it's a project like this, we know, right? And your Poinciana example is well taken. We're talking about doing, even if it isn't greenfield, and we're looking at, some of these wings and some of these reconfigs and some of the things that we're taking a look at. Those, I think, are some of the conversations we want to make sure we're having. We're always exploring the most cost-effective approach to constructing whatever vertical space we need.
Right.
So.
Absolutely.
I think what Tim said, whatever's right for the project.
Certainly.
That's what I was just asking.
And that's why we have people with expertise now in these
absolutely.
chairs.
I'm not second guessing your decision here. Thank y'all very much. Very good.
Thank you, John.
I might suggest maybe we take 5 minutes recess before starting the.
Sure.
Yes. Now let's break.
Which memo? I didn't send it to you.
No.
I can get it to you. Oh, okay. I can go, do you need to work on it?
No, that's not unusual.
Yeah, but we need it in this
No,
town.
you're fine. It's going forward. I was supposed to be down at their board of directors meeting. I think like 2 weeks ago or something like that. I had something come up. We had to cancel my appearance and kind of a little piece of it. And then I know that Karen's working right now to try to get me rescheduled to be out there to talk with them. So I'll report back to you guys.
I know that, no, I just know that there's Liberty and Quincy kids already.
Yeah, it's in the works. I know that.
Liberty's got a real swim through Quincy and, they would have had a pool.
But it's all going good, and the desire for the work together is absolutely there. There's no lack of partnership.
No, I know, I'm just looking, I'm just looking at when it's gonna be usable.
Yep.
Oh, CT is going in the right direction.
Yes.
How's your trip?
Yeah, we had a great time. Really great time.
No. No, this was the line item we created. We finally got to conference. I want to get over there.
I want to make sure we weren't approving it.
Yeah. And it is.
Probably do that. That would
Wasn't there a workshop when it was proved that it was an $8 million savings?
What? This is dated
I'm
the
not
15th.
familiar with that, but it's possible.
Wasn't there a workshop?
When's the last time that we had a project that was hard bid?
The last one I remember was the Poinciana High School auditorium.
Would y'all like to
I
call the
haven't been
meeting
here
back
for
to
5
order?
years.
That was conversation.
It was right, it
We
was
are
like
in
they
the
were
public
finishing up when I
I don't
left.
remember since, I
About
don't remember
7
the
years.
time I've been here. We never had a project hard.
No,
Probably not.
There's a general propensity against it.
just
I
so
mean,
we're
it's-
clear, let me
it's
call this
disfavored.
meeting, let me re-adjourn the meeting, and then we can have this open discussion real quick here. Tanya, if you'll reconvene us at 3:08 on that clock, I don't know what that's done
It's
yet.
expensive, stupid
And
expensive.
now we can ask those questions, if we would like, if nobody cares anymore.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, what was that? Dr. Pace and I were talking.
I give up.
Okay.
I give up. As soon as,
Mr. Weiss started selling a piece of property.
as soon as,
They're talking about, they're negotiating a price right now. Calvin, there's a closing, go ahead.
well, I'll go ahead, I'll get us started, well.
Sure.
The legal services that we had on here, we wanted to have a conversation about legal services, kind of what our options are and where we were going and where we.
Are the attorneys present?
Attorneys are present. This had come up 6 months ago, and or some time ago, I don't know if it's 6 months, 5 months, 8 months, and we chose at that time just to hold off really on any conversations, but I was hoping we could just discuss kind of as a board what we'd like to do, whether we want to look at something in-house, whether we want to do an RFP for legal services outside, whether we want to negotiate the current contract that we have. Any other suggestions y'all have?
Yeah.
So,
And that's, I've given this, since, obviously in the last 30 days, we've been forced to give this more thought than maybe we would like, but we are where we are, and there's no denying that. And I think all things being equal, I mean, we've got a team that is obviously committed to and done a laudable job. I'm not going to suggest there may not be other options, but I think all things considered, I'd like to see us give this team, for the time being, a 90 to 120-day contract. See how they perform in the absence of Mr. Brown, who's no longer here, and if they're performing well, then it's one conversation at the end of that term. If they're not performing well, it's a different conversation during that term. But right now, I think that's where I stand with it. Until I see that they can't perform, I'm going under the premise that they can.
any other comment?
And I can echo a couple of the points. I think, the interesting scenario that we need to consider is the number of things that we have in the works right now. What if we move forward, what a transition would look like for us, what we need to keep. Sorry, I feel like I'm back to you guys now. So let me summarize it this way. I think it's important on behalf of the board, the taxpayers, the district, that we remain very open to what it is that our representation in any capacity would look like. We dealt with this when we were looking for a new superintendent as well. We want to make sure that we're doing the best job, we're looking as far and as wide as we can, and we're bringing as many opportunities to the table as possible. I don't necessarily have any issue, and I spoke with Mr. Martyr yesterday some about this, I don't necessarily have any issue with the work that our team's been doing for us. I think we've got some very capable people that are very entrenched in a number of projects for us and have been doing some good work. But at the same time, I think it is incumbent upon us, as it is with all of these other contracts we look at, to make sure that we have the right opportunities to review what's going on, what do we do, what does the future for us look like. So I'll summarize my point by saying this. I'm open to what that might look like. Do we go out, allow Greenspoon Martyr to continue to serve the interest of the board, participate in a bid process so that we can have an open competitive process and see who else is interested in coming to the table? But I would just caution the board that if we go in that direction, we need to be also very cognizant of the fact that we have a number of subject matter experts that are working on a number of very important projects for us. and that this, whatever direction we go, and we have to make sure that we really think long and hard about what that is and what the potential unintended consequences may be of making a change or going down a road that, and it's not that it can't be done and it hasn't been done, right? Part of that conversation, I think, Dr. Pace as well, is do we stay with our current model? Do we look at doing inside counsel? What does that look like? If we did inside counsel, how much external subject matter expert representation are we going to need as well? Because we're not going to be able to deal with everything in-house. So I think the board has to have these conversations. I'd be remiss if I didn't say what I know everybody is already thinking, which is that it's a tragedy that we're having to have the conversation. I consider Larry a friend and certainly a respected colleague in the work that I've been able to do here over the last number of years. So the fact that we find ourselves here today, without a doubt, is certainly a sad scenario. But I also think that it's incumbent upon us to really explore all aspects of this conversation, which includes having a conversation with our existing representation and making sure, as I discussed with Mr. Martyr yesterday, what their team will do, where there's opportunities to improve upon the work that they've been doing, are there cost savings that the board should be realizing, and how we deal with our representation. If we did look at a transition, what would that look like? I mean, I think we have to look at everything and explore everything, but I think that conversation should include our current representation so we understand their thoughts and their feelings on what's going on at the same time.
I think that's fine, Tim, and I had a chance to have lunch with Mr. Martyr today, and I've received a lot of nice emails from staff and some other folks that Amy is doing some work for, and I certainly want those folks to know that I do take those into consideration, and I thank them for reaching out. I was prepared today, and I hope we still can as we move along here. I know we have a lot of time. Let's just drag it all the way to 5:30, all right, Clarence? No, I'm prepared, and what I'd like to do is have that discussion about in-house versus out-of-house with some folks that and I would say Chairman Thacker and maybe even Mr. Soto would have some more experience in those areas, and I'd like to hear their thoughts on that and see about what we do to move forward. I don't disagree with Tim at all. I think, or even Jay to that matter, that we have some folks doing some great work for us, and I want to make sure that they know that, and we appreciate them. But at the same time, I don't think it's in any way wrong to research what would be the right way to move forward.
Well, I want to hold my comments until you guys had a chance to go ahead and talk about this. And the reason, because
we decide.
This is I'm an attorney, and I work with attorney firms, and so I have for you, this is probably something that you're analyzing for this particular situation. Absolutely. Being a school board member, my understanding goes beyond that because of simply that I'm in the industry. Mm-hmm. So I'd just like to hear from everyone else, and then if I can be constructive with some comments, I will.
That's why I want to hear from you.
Yeah. Let me just quickly say, too, because I alluded to it, but I wanted to publicly thank you as well, Mr. Martyr, for reaching out to me. And I enjoyed our conversation, and not only and I told him this when we were together, I said, him reaching out to me, and I think every board member, not only is the right business decision to make, they need to make sure that they look out for the interest of their contract and what they've been doing and making sure they don't lose the business component of it. But personally and professionally, I appreciate it as well. And it gave me an opportunity to have a conversation with him that I otherwise wouldn't have been able to have. And so, which becomes an important piece. I know, just like in my world, that Larry served in one capacity, but there were a number of people that were handling a lot of the tentacles of that organization. And having an opportunity to talk with Mr. Martyr was helpful to me to not only articulate that very viewpoint that I had about the work that you four ladies have been doing on our behalf, but also to understand what that role would look like if Greenspoon Martyr continued to represent the school board, where Mr. Martyr would fit into that role, so on and so forth. So I just want to just publicly say thank you, because it not only was the right thing to do from a business standpoint, but just personally and professionally, I appreciate it as well, and it gave me an opportunity to get a little bit better understanding about you, your role, and how you would fit into all this. You are the principal, one of the principals of the firm, and so I had some questions about that, and I enjoyed our time.
And again, I appreciate everyone's, obviously in this very condensed time frame. And when I see Larry next time, I'll tell him how upset I am.
Hope it'll be a while.
Next time. But, you know, it's been a very difficult time, obviously, for all of us. And I also appreciate that each of you have jobs that you're doing, you know, beyond this, well beyond your public service. So I do appreciate being able to meet with each of you. And again, as part of your deliberation, I want to be, not I, but we want to be helpful in that process. I'm happy to give you pros and cons, because I've been doing this for almost 39 years. I've worked with many public entities, other governmental entities, the federal government, large financial institutions that have in-house counsel. And I can perhaps shed some light upon how that works in different scenarios. So our objective here has always been this: the best interest of the Osceola County School District. That was always Larry's interest. And regardless of whatever personal feelings we may or may not have, obviously we want to continue if we can. But we also want to give you the advice that we would give any client if we were asked an opinion. And were this, let's say, a contract, we do construction litigation, we negotiate contracts, we deal with contractors. If you were coming to us with a question about some other entity and asking us what we thought, what our advice was, I will tell you this straight up. I will give you the same advice regarding our retention or lack of retention than I would give you if you were asking about some other kind of contract and what I thought about that. And that's the fiduciary obligation we owe to this board, to give you honest advice, straightforward advice, even as it pertains to ourselves and our own potential, you know, economic position, our representation of the board. So I'm happy to answer those questions and give you the benefit of my experience in other settings that involve, you know, these types of issues, and maybe help you. I know you all have resources to get the answers, but if I can be helpful in helping you get to an answer, whatever it may be, whether it's retaining Green Spoon Martyr, whether it's going in-house, whether it's a third party, whether it's a combination of some of those things, I'm happy to give you the benefit of my experience.
Thank you.
I'd just like to add briefly, you know, I mean, because of where we are, you know, it's obviously, to Tim's point, it's a very sad circumstance. And in retrospect, I mean, I worked with Larry longer than anybody else, obviously. And, you know, in looking back at that relationship, he was the attorney for the school board. I could pick up the phone, ask him about a specific issue, et cetera. But he was also a mentor as much as anything else. Looking back at it now, I mean, I've had that time to reflect. And there's a few things. Number one of the things that impressed me with his new firm was that Mr. Martyr made it clear that he would be the person that would be the school board attorney. He wouldn't send somebody else, number one. And I think there's a depth of experience and disciplines that they've got that a lot of other firms may not have that we would consider. That's for an outsourced firm. And again, I think that we should, personally, I'd like to continue using who we've got versus reinventing the wheel necessarily also. Until we find out the wheel doesn't turn, then it's a different conversation. But at the same time, I've been on the school board a long time, and I know board members throughout the state, and I know that Orange County used to outsource it. Now they've got it in-house, and you get, you know, Rick Roach is a guy who just got off the board a few years ago. Rick was on the board when they had in-house, he was on the board when they had out-house, and you hear different takes. I've got friends on other school boards throughout the state, and I've got one I'm not going to mention, we're in South Florida. They've got an in-house attorney, and she wishes she had what we had. So, you know, while we may consider options X, Y, and Z, and I'm not going to tell you which option is right, wrong, and different, and it's, to everybody's point, it's our responsibility to look at the right options that we think will serve us best and serve the community best. But the grass isn't always greener on the other side. So while I'm not suggesting, you know, we don't want to look at everything, this is something that has got to be done very deliberately and with great purpose. And I know that we'll all take this seriously, but in that interim period, which would take, 60, 120, 180 days, et cetera, I think that we owe it to ourselves and to Tim's point with all the stuff we've got in the works to be under contract for a 90, 120-day period, et cetera, see how they're performing, and then maybe revisit this, but which is not to suggest that we stop the conversation today. But, there are real things that need to be done, and I don't know that we really necessarily want to put a hiccup in the way of that stuff, which in other professionals, they wouldn't allow it to happen, but it's human nature.
All right, I'll give you my 2 cents, and then we'll let Calvin throw in his. First off, I certainly agree. I mean, nobody's going to, I don't think there's anybody in this room going to say, let's not have green spoon and martyr here tomorrow. So whatever that time frame period is, I think it's fine. I don't agree with extending them 90 or 120 days and then starting a process.
No,
I think if we're going to enter a process to do an RFP for outside, I think it should start soon. I think we should extend these guys in the interim, and they'd certainly be invited and hopefully would participate in the RFP. The other question that I want to see explored is in-house. And I will tell you that this is not a reflection on Greensboro Martyr, it's not a reflection on Larry, but I brought this up a year ago. When Larry first moved, we said, let's go with this for a year or so, then let's just have a conversation and see what the board wants to do. So this conversation to me has been evolving and coming around since I've been on the board. And I don't know, Larry was here 25 years or something like that. And if you don't look at something every 25 years or so, maybe that's not a great idea
Can't do
either.
that with a marriage. If we could.
good point, Mr. Martyr.
If we did
Thank
that
you.
without liability, I think a
Right.
lot of people would sign up for it.
Right, but I think it is worthwhile. I think we're a pretty good sized school district now with more than 60,000 kids. I've worked in my business career, I've almost always had in-house counsel, and in-house not being one, being 10 or 12 attorneys that specialize in different things. I'm not in any way suggesting we go hire 10 or 12 attorneys, but I think if you hire 1 or 2 or 3, you hire 1, and then you look at the types of things that are kind of full-time type areas. Some of the things they do here, if I don't know, we've got a lot of letters on Amy on the ESE stuff. If that is, a full-time person, a full-time amount of work, they may augment with an attorney in-house that does that. Then certainly we're not going to hire somebody in-house to do personal injury litigation, which is not full-time and highly, highly specialized. So if you get the right in-house attorney in, they look and see things that they can keep people busy with that are, quite frankly, cheaper, because it'd be a lot cheaper for us to pay Amy's salary, I'm sure, than her hourly billing rate. As would be everybody at the table, I would assume. So, and I'm not saying those are cheap or free or anything else, because they're not. They're very expensive, and I don't have any illusion we're going to get an in-house counsel in here at $80,000. It's going to be well more than that, 6 figures more than that. So, but we are spending $1.2 million, $1.3 million or something on legal counsel. I think it warrants a look. I think it warrants a look for 2 reasons. I think it warrants a look for cost, and I think it warrants a look for who we have. Not that I don't have any issues with these people sitting out here, quite frankly, but I also don't know what's available. It's kind of like going to the store and putting blinders on and just going and grabbing one thing off the shelf every time. Maybe you want to try a different flavor of ketchup or see what's out there. If you don't open your eyes and at least know, at that point I would feel, okay, we got the right team, we got the right firm, we got the right whatever it is, or wherever it goes. I think it would make me feel better. We did a superintendent search. So far, I feel pretty good about the choice we made. We went through a process. It took some time. We looked at lots of different people, lots of different types of people, types of background, where they came from, what their current roles weren't, educations. I think, types of work people have been doing. I think those are all the same questions that you look for when you look at different possibilities. And to me, it's not to say the answer is they're not here in 90, 120, whatever this time frame is, but it's to say they are here and we all feel extremely good about it, or we feel good that this is something maybe as a board based on our size and needs we should try. Kelvin talked at the last meeting about something that I could not agree with anything more than this, is there is a special, I don't know if bond's the right word, or trust between an attorney and a client. I need somebody, because I use Larry a lot for lots of different questions related to this job. Could be sunshine questions, it could be things that affect me personally, like sunshine, it could be things that affect the school district, things that I was extremely comfortable calling and knowing that Larry had experience and the pure legal knowledge to answer. I probably never asked him a question he had not been asked 10 times. So there was a lot of comfort in there with that to me. Whatever we do, I want that comfort level. And that's extremely important to me. So,
to make a good point, because I had an issue Friday, Dr. Pace and I discussed it, and she told me, you should really talk to Mr. Martyr about that, and we did. And to your point, it was the first time I'd made that call relative to, where you pick up the phone, call Larry.
mm-hmm.
I felt like I got good advice with somebody who wasn't, with the difference between Mr. Martyr and Mr. Brown, I found, in style. Larry, who we loved, could be intense and neurotic. Mr. Martyr was not neurotic.
Did he answer in less than an hour?
Oh, yes, yes. Larry can take 10 minutes to say hello.
It was about 10 minutes.
Larry can take 10 minutes to say hello.
But it was about 10 minutes.
But no, the point was, but Mr. Martyr, to your credit, though, you were not neurotic on the phone. Which and I loved Larry. Don't get me wrong. I say that with great affection.
We all get that. We all waited till the right time to call Larry when we had time on our hands.
Right.
I think board, what you want to consider, and Clarence, you really hit on all the important points. First of all, you really want to take the question as to whether you want to do an in-house or not. Initially, that's really what you want to do, and kind of set that aside. From my experience dealing with I don't know too much about you, Mr. Booth or Clarence, but I've heard this board not favor really an addition to bureaucracy, and I've heard it mostly from Tim. And what in-house counsel does, I think it's going to be very interesting for us to go ahead and explore that, because that's what it necessarily will do. It'll increase, it'll be adding employees. And we also want to go ahead and consider that relationship that you just spoke about. It really is different between employee and employer than it is from, your attorney that you have a binding legal contract with. And those are things that you really want to talk about and ask those questions, so that you can go ahead and see how comfortable you feel with that. So, you have an ideological point, or at least consideration as to whether you want to expand bureaucracy and have more employees. And then you have to understand how that relationship translates, because it's very different. I think when Jay Wheeler said this comment about he knows of situations where, well, the most flexible one is the one that we have right now, just so you know, as opposed to in-house counsel where you have employee protections and you have a lot of other things. But those are things that's not to discount it, and that it may be that when you talk about it, you analyze it there. It may be something that this board ultimately favors. I had to mention that based on how well I've known you and how you've spoken before. And, part of my job here is also to understand you. And so we have, right, and what's important to you because you're here to serve our students, okay? So, we need to do that. And it brings up the other point too, as far as competency. That's the number one thing you want to look for when you're looking for your attorney, is that they can represent you well. Cost is something that you're going to go ahead and kind of sacrifice with, one way or the other. But competency, you never will at all. And so you want to see that, in your firm. You want to include into that variable board. If you want to include, I think that to some extent, I don't know whether we were lucky or what have you, in terms of how Larry Brown interacted with us. And but if that's something that you value in your relationship with your attorney, and then that's something personal to you that will influence how you go about it. I felt that my experience with Mr. Brown went beyond. He actually took time to go ahead and say, he flat out told me, this is his statement, almost word for word, you know, I want you to be at your best to represent the students of Osceola County, okay? So, of course, he'll take your phone call and, you know, put you at ease about whatever question that you have, because that can interfere with how you represent. If that's gonna be part of what you look at competency, you can only learn that through experience. Through what Jay Wheeler said, you know, if you interact with someone and you give it enough time. That's about, I mean, at this point, that's really the most insight I could offer you. You know, we all agreed already that we have competency. We have a 200 attorney law firm national with all practice areas, with resources beyond, I don't know any other school district can have. It's really a question whether it's the right fit with the attorney-client relationship.
Well, I don't want to get too much into Green Spoon Martyr at this point. I'd really like to focus on process of what we want to do or not do.
Yeah, what is the I mean, that's my question, because, you know, it was easy. We picked a superintendent. I mean, it wasn't easy, but, you know.
It wasn't easy.
We picked a superintendent, but we knew the mechanism that was in place. I mean, how do we get to the point now? We have to decide whether, first, we have to figure out how we're going to decide whether we do in-house or out-house. And to your point, if you don't mind, to your point, Kelvin, you know, talking about expanding the bureaucracy. On a local level, I don't see it that way. Maybe Tim does. I don't see it that way, whether it's out of house, in house.
I haven't even said anything.
We love pointing at it.
I base my statement on past, like I said, you haven't been on the board long.
No, I understand. Because
outside county.
This is Osceola County. We got outhouse.
Yeah,
So,
remember where you are.
So yeah, I don't think it's about bureaucracy. I think it's about service, and especially on a local level, looking at these things, it's all about service.
Let me, Dr. Bass, and then I was going to throw something out too, but go ahead.
I have a couple comments.
In terms of what the process would look like, if you guys decided to do something like perhaps a short-term contract while you figure out what you want. Stacy and Cheryl and her team have done some research in terms of other RFPs for legal services that have been done in other districts.
How recently?
And I liken it very much to the process that you went through to find a superintendent. The first piece would be to look at a sample scope of services agreement and decide for you what are the key criteria that you want. Stacy's kind of prepared just a draft for us to have a starting point if you decide you want to go there. If not, that's fine too. In looking at what some other districts have done, where based on our current contract, these are the services that are included. There are places where you can add, take away, decide what criteria is important to you. Then it would be out on the streets for public solicitation, very much like superintendents were applying to be your candidates. In the end, there would be a review of the submittals. There would be oral presentations, basically interviews for you as a board or whoever you decide to be on the RFP committee. And ultimately, this attorney serves the board to make a final recommendation or a final selection. And within that RFP, it could potentially come out of that in-house or external.
So
I mean, there may be
that's
a person who would say, I could do this for you from an internal basis and contract for this, this, and this. It's not my expertise. Or here we are as a firm, we can do all of these things except for this. So that process could be very much like the superintendent search process, if that was the direction that you decided to go.
But with that said, with the superintendent search process, and I've been through several of these already, some were done with integrity and some were not. But to that end, when we did it, we had superintendents who were resigning, retiring, or were in the process of maybe being forced into resignation because of lack of performance, et cetera. Here's an instance where we don't have our professionals retiring. We don't have our professionals being called we would like them to step down because of lack of performance, et cetera. So, I mean, I appreciate the process, right, but the circumstances, it's not as if we're boxed into a corner where our attorney's given us a date that by October 1st or November 1st or December 1st, they want to retire, so, you know, and has there been a lack of performance? Or, with that said now, and I realize we're speaking openly with an open mind, do we just want to see what might make more sense for us? And I'm not disputing that, but at the same time, you know, is it because we're dissatisfied with something, or we just want to see if there's vanilla, if vanilla and chocolate really is better than strawberry? And I don't know the answer to that.
First of all, I don't understand your tasting different ketchup comments. I don't eat condiments.
That's why I use ice cream.
As soon as I said it, I said, Tim doesn't even
I
get this.
can't relate to
That's why I use ice cream.
But I thought there was only Heinz.
Ice cream I know you've got.
But ice cream I can get. I want to go back to a comment you made earlier, though, and it was an important comment. And it dovetails really into what you were just saying in a little bit different approach, though. This isn't new to us. You did bring this up a year ago. We did get to the point where we had to have a conversation about the renewal of the contract with Greenspoon Martyr. And because of all the complexities of what was going on, and because of Larry's health, the board did decide, let's go ahead and extend the contract out in increments, because the last thing we wanted to do is go through that, and particularly go through that while Larry was dealing with such health concerns. Correct. So I do think that there's an important distinction to support your point earlier, that it's not like just all of a sudden the board is going, well, maybe we should look at this. This has been an ongoing conversation for at least a year. And when we think about it, I said earlier, Mr. Will, it's not that for me I'm dissatisfied per se. It really isn't. I just know that in everything that I do, here or in other aspects of my life, I want to make sure that I'm doing it right. And I want to make sure that I'm doing it with integrity, and that I'm exploring all the opportunities that I need to, and that at the end of the day I can say I made the right decision based upon the knowledge that I had, and that I've done the right thing in this capacity to serve the best interest of this district and these students and these important taxpayers. And so we have had conversations about billing and cost and different aspects, and what do we do. The board has taken some different postures on things over the last couple of years about what approach we take on litigation and other aspects. So to me, it's not a matter of, you know, just all of a sudden, you know, we have Larry's passing, this is where we find ourselves, well, we might as well just start looking at things. This truly is an ongoing conversation. I think we all know that. I think the team knows that. I know Larry certainly knew that. I think this whole board and the leadership team knows that this board has been thinking for at least a year, what do we do with this? Do we look at in-house? Are expenses getting to a point where it makes sense for us to do that? Do we look at a different firm? When we had the whole contract change, when Larry left his previous firm and went to the current firm, there was some conversation from the board about how that process was handled and how we felt about that. I mean, so there's a number of aspects of this that I think if we're going to have an honest conversation, we need to start with that as the basis of it, because it is an important part of what we've been dealing with, and I think we'd be deceiving ourselves if we didn't at least remain honest and true to that aspect. And I think it's important for you guys, all five of you, that you understand that that's, I think, the framework, at least where I sit at, and I don't know if everyone else here agrees with me or not, but it's, for me, it's nothing ever personal. I always say, even in other boards that I've served on, I say we always look at the circumstance, not the people. For me, I can't make decisions based on people because my emotions would get in the way of the outcome. So I have to make decisions based upon what I think is best and objective that ultimately is going to bring about the best result. So for me, this isn't in any way a conversation about Greenspoon Martyr. I said to Michael yesterday that, you know, I'm grateful for his time. He has 1,000 other things he could be doing, and certainly far more important people that he could be sitting with than me and having these conversations. For me, it has nothing to do with the work that each one of you guys that I've worked directly with in some capacity or another, I'm sure over the last 4 years, have helped me or helped us be the board that we need to be and to do the things we need to do. So none of this is personal, but all of this is about saying, are we doing it the right way? Look, we are where we are. Like it or not, this is where we find ourselves today. I think it's incumbent upon the board that we make sure that we retain the council we have for the time being, that we continue to work with them, leverage the resources that we've invested in them and they're investing in us, but at the same time we look and we have an honest and robust conversation about what the future of our representation of this board is going to look like. And if in an RFP process it brings Greenspoon Martyr back to the table and they rise to the top as the best firm, and we just say, you know what we can do at the end of the day is rest well at night knowing that we did an integral process, just like we did the superintendent search. We came out with the best firm in the end, and we're glad that that was the case. I don't see anything wrong with that. To be
They
really,
have a leg
to
up in
really
that
frank.
process.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think it's an important opportunity. I mentioned this to Mr. Marty yesterday for all of us, and I think for the team as well, to have a conversation about where are areas that we could be improving. Where are things that maybe in representation we could say, hey, you know what, we were kind of doing it this way because it's the way that Larry had wanted us to do it, but we think we could actually improve upon that process. By the way, none of that's a slight on Larry. For me, none of this has anything to do with him, but there's always an opportunity for us to improve. Every time I sit up here, I feel like I need to do a better job than I did at the last meeting. Every time I'm involved in a real estate transaction, I want to do better than I did. Every day in my marriage, I want to do better than I did the day before. So it's this ongoing evolution of us as people that we say we want to continue to improve. And I have to believe that in every aspect of what this district does, this board does, our superintendent does, our legal representation does, that there's always opportunity for improvement. And it takes an honest dialogue between everybody in order for us to get there. So to me, this is an important conversation. I'm ready to have it. Stacy, I appreciate your work. I'm definitely going to lean on you for some insight and some thought process as well. But you know, let's do it, and let's make sure that when we do it, we understand, and that for me, the five of you understand that none of this is a slight or a slap against any of you. As you pointed out, Mr. Martyr, the advice that you would give to any client would be that you've got to make sure you make the right decision, you understand all the aspects and the components of it, make sure at the end you come out with the best outcome. So I think to your point, I'll end where I began. This has been a conversation that the board has been trying to figure out what do we do with for a while now. We're here. Let's figure it out. Let's put this to bed and let's understand what the right move for us in the next year, 2, 3, 5 is going to be. By the way, you're not terribly wrong on that bureaucracy piece. I don't know if I would use that word, but you're right. We do need to balance that. We do need to balance that. And I'll also, yeah, and I know I do from time to time. And I also will point out, you're 100% correct. You pointed out as well that the relationship that I was able to have in the dialogue as I have with Larry was very valuable to me. And knowing that I can pick up the phone and he would answer that call at any time, at any day, to whatever I needed, and I can get sound advice, and that I'd get every single statute number quoted to me in the midst of that as well.
Subsections.
Yes.
Even if he was skiing in Utah.
I talked to him many times.
Many times.
I never felt I really needed those.
But it made him feel good.
Yes.
Would it be impertinent of me to weigh in on a few things?
Let us finish our conversation here first.
You know, when I originally voted to extend the contract to the 20th, which was today, because I wanted your input, Tim, and I valued your input as a member of this board, I still don't know where we're at on the inside versus outside. If I'm hearing Dr. Pace right, if you RFP, you can RFP kind of for the same.
Can I ask Stacy a question? Because it's that question.
Sure.
Stacy, do you want to come back?
I got a couple more things after that.
Well, mine's question right along with that.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Can you do an RFP, Stacy, that can ask for legal services and basically how you would like to deliver them? In other words, would you like to deliver them as an employee or as outside counsel? So we could do that all at once and see what you get.
And so, I mean, I'll just say it. I'm on board with that. I'm on board with that if that's the way we can go, because then we can continue to have this discussion inside versus outside. But we're going to be getting both. All our applicants will be either outside, inside. They'll
maybe somebody could apply for both. I don't know.
I guess where I'm at now is what in the transition time. I mean, I think to say along the lines with what Mr. Weaver said is to, as we go forward in this RFP process, to make sure that we know these folks are going to be extended and will be continuing to do great work and obviously have a leg up in any competition. But
there is an item on your
RFP.
agenda under old business for us to consider legal services because the board will need to take action of some kind.
Absolutely.
Tonight.
And I guess what I would say, just to kind of finish up my thoughts, is I would be for. Is 60 days?
60 days is not going to be long enough to do this process well.
Right. There's an outline here that brings us at least to January.
How many days does this take?
Ideally,
yeah,
January.
Okay.
So if we extended this to January 33rd.
That would allow some transition time between a new firm and the existing firm if, for example, you make a change or not, because you're going to want some
We would
time for them
we would extend
to
them
pass off
if we went
contracts and
outside to somebody else or inside.
Right.
I'm sure we would extend them beyond that as a transition.
But we really would want to extend their contract through the end of January.
I guess what I would say.
I want to talk about
Ricky, finish.
No. I guess what I'm saying is I'm for that. I'm for the RFP process to begin, but I'm also for extending this out to however long it takes to get that done.
Okay, Mr. Chairman. I'm not going to tell you I'm closed to any of this. There is a very date specific. I really don't think it's in our best interest to start anything prior to November 8th. We've got I think all of our energies has to be focused on what we're trying to accomplish with that endeavor, which is the Super Bowl and World Series all rolled into one. And that's why whatever we do, I think that I'd like to see it started maybe mid-November, and maybe we, instead of sending them to February 1, maybe to March 1, only because that November 8th date is so important. We really don't want to dilute our efforts and draw attention to anything else other than what we're trying to accomplish that date. I really feel very strongly about that effort.
Okay.
Can I need some help here. You know, I understand that Mr. Thacker and Mr. Weishire, that you said that this has been an ongoing. It's never been clear to me, you know, what precipitated. I guess you alluded to that it was Mr. Brown's health. That I wish we could talk about why we are looking for this change. If it's just Mr. Brown, or was it something from before?
Well,
I think it's just a general business question that after 25 years.
Okay. So it was nothing. It was nothing specific. Just we should review this.
Jay brought up a point a minute ago that I agree. I understand the point he was trying to make, but I don't agree, and that is, you know, just continue until it goes bad. We're having a very hard time right now having a conversation when things are not bad, when things are going probably as well as could be expected in light of what's happened.
Absolutely.
And we're having a hard time. It's a hard conversation to have at any time. It's a hard conversation for these people to hear, particularly the ones that have been involved on this account for a very long time. I don't want to, if we're going to have this conversation, I'd rather have it, draw the line saying, here's the process we're going through. I think everybody here, I certainly hope they're going to participate in the process. I don't want to have this conversation every 6 months.
I'm just
to answer Kelvin's question.
No, I just.
You were on the phone. You were out of town. We had the emergency meeting.
I was out of town.
Yeah, and you were on the phone, and we had to kind of reapprove Larry's contract because he left his firm and joined a new firm and whatever. I believe it was at that meeting. It may have been the next one when you came back that you asked for a legal services workshop. And it was in between that time that Larry, I think, told us of his illness. And so I think we canceled that legal services workshop because of that.
Yes, we did.
Does that answer your question, Kelvin? That's the way I remember it.
Well, I mean, it makes sense to what Mr. Thacker is saying, that we're just doing a review because, you know, it's been a long time since we looked at this issue. Am I correct about that?
Yeah, that's part of it, and I just think it's time to take a look. I think it's time to see what's out there.
Because it's different. We've grown.
In 25 years, we've probably gone from 25,000 kids to 63,000 kids.
Correct.
It was about 20,000, I think. It was maybe even less than 20.
So we've gone up a bunch during that time frame. So we're a pretty large district now. Does it make sense to do something inside?
And I think
does it make sense to do something else? I can tell you every month I get. The bill comes in, and I see about 35 questions on the bill, and everybody's like, this isn't right, this isn't right, this isn't right, and we're having a big discussion about the bill. The bill's this big.
Yeah, but the bill can explain itself,
let me just fit.
Right.
I got it. But it just it's not that I care that somebody charged $2 in tolls. A lot of the stuff I don't care, quite frankly. But what I do care about is all of a sudden, I'll guarantee you, wasn't the fee 20 years ago was not 1.2, 3, or $4 million. Now it is. That's a pretty big chunk for one expense, recurring expense. That's what I want to look at. Wait a minute, Kelvin. Now that I've said that, I do want to say clearly, this is not a 100% cost issue to me. If somebody can do it at 600 and they can do it at $1.4 million, and the one who does it for 600 is only representing people in traffic violations, that doesn't matter to me. I mean, that's not a competitive person, product, firm, whatever the.
Well, I just wanted that to be clear because and now, Mr. Booth, I just need you to consider something. I mean, I disfavor this approach about, oh, let's just see what comes up with both. You know, we set up 3 hours of time here, and we need another one, we'll do it. But let's go ahead and think about this whole in-house and out, you know, and
Well, that's what we're here for today, right?
outside counsel, right? As opposed to just not giving them any direction and saying, hey, because you don't know what you're going to get back. It really, what you want to do is ask the right questions, get the information, adjourn until you have something more, before you go ahead and say, okay, you know what, am I still open? Do I still want to go this route? Because they're two fundamentally different types of representation. They totally are. They change the dynamics. Are they the right one because this is a bigger district than it was? It could be.
Yep.
You know, it works in some district, it doesn't, regardless of size. It really comes down to the culture. You know, what is the vision, the strategic vision, the strategic goals of the district? Those are the things that go into whether you want to have, you know, an added, you know, when you want to hire employees to do the legal work under the structure of the employee relationship versus the outside counsel. Those are things that need to be.
Mr. Soto, and I appreciate that. I guess what I've kind of figured out throughout this workshop is that none of us here are the experts on inside and outside counsel.
We have to figure out.
And I guess why I bring it up on the RFP, that if it was both, would be that those folks would come in and be making those pitches to us of what they can do and how that would work. Correct?
Mr. Soto is correct, in that there will have to be some specific questions
Sure.
that you all will need to reach consensus on to help
We don't need
Stacy
the
and
RFP process
Cheryl.
to do that.
No, but if
We have
we
the
can
workshop.
decide now if
We
we're
have the
going to do
workshop to do
that.
that.
After
We
November
can
8th.
bring somebody in.
No,
I mean, we could find another couple in-house counsels that would probably come in and talk to us at a workshop and just let them tell us what they're doing, how they're doing it.
Yeah.
We know what their opinion
I
is
think
on
it can
outside
run
versus
concurrently.
inside.
I believe it can.
I think you can too.
Well, here's the thing. I don't know about the rest of you, but, okay, I spent close to 2 hours with a white binder around this
I've
thing.
got the same binder.
Did everybody get that same binder?
Yeah, it was the big binder.
I've got the binder.
Oh,
Yeah.
that binder.
Okay, I want to remind you
That's how
that.
I hurt my back,
I wanted, yeah, well, I said, here, you keep it, and send me PDF. I grabbed it. Look, gentlemen, so that's just part of the research that I've done,
Correct.
okay? I disfavored your approach because I think that conflating it with an RFP process brings in elements that may be unnecessary and may conflict the issue. I think that if you want to get to the answer board as to whether or not you would like, we could reach out maybe to other districts. We can have that research. We could have a workshop to go ahead and really do an analysis without an RFP process. I don't feel like the RFP process is the right vehicle for us to get to the answer to that question. And I would just caution you on taking that approach.
You could do an RFI, which is a request for information.
I just don't want to do something that strings this thing out for a year and a half.
Yeah, that doesn't. But
we
look,
do
let me
after
ask you:
November
how many
8th
of you thought that you could
I
reach that position?
totally reject that, Jake.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's going to take her that long to get moving. We're not going to be looking at applications on November 8th.
Correct.
So, go ahead.
I mean, how do you want to figure this out? I mean, it's two
But
ways.
Kelvin, I think we're thinking the same way. I mean, we may have
No,
a different
I
approach.
agree with
but,
you.
yeah.
What I don't like the approach of the RFP. Go get us RFP for both. I like to do our own.
And I look at
kind
it
of
as it just gets us
investigative-
to that point quicker, that it runs concurrently. We're gathering information as we're gathering.
I don't understand the rush for things, to be quite honest. That's you all have.
I do.
You want me to tell you?
I want to get this over with. I really do. I'm sorry, Clarence.
But you do realize that whatever contract we have with current council, it's severable.
It's
I'll
what?
notice.
That'll never.
It's what? What'd you say?
We could cancel it. We cancel.
Oh, right.
It's
Yeah,
30 days
severable.
cancel.
Okay. Got it.
I can
Without-
tell you that'll
with
sit
30
here
days
for
notice.
25 more years, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of.
I'm ready to get comfortable again with our attorneys. And you know what? I've had lunch with Mr. Martyr, and I'm very comfortable with the fact that his firm has so much to offer. And I think they would probably rise to the top of an RFP process. I really do. I mean, that's just me. But with that said, I'm ready to put this question, I think Clarence brought it up, I'm ready to put this question to bed.
Yes.
Of, are we on the right track? Where are we headed? Who's going to be the council? Who's going to be our next Larry? We value Larry. We know we have good folks here.
No one
They're
will be
in,
next Larry.
huh?
No one will be next Larry.
No, I understand.
Understand, yeah.
But we have these ladies that we know are doing tremendous work for us already. So let's just put it all to bed and let's get it done as quick as possible. That's where I'm.
And I don't really want to get in today, if we're going to do an RFP, I don't want to get into the merit, in fairness to Greenspan, I don't want to discuss my feelings on them one way or the other today. Because I don't think that's fair in an RFP process, good, bad, or indifferent. So if they're going to be a participant, I would assume they would be.
But are we not evaluating whether we're going to do an RFP or not? Because we may be looking to hire staff.
Yeah.
Those are two different things here.
But that's what we were saying.
No, we were going to use the RFP process as a way for us to determine, we stay with where we are, hire another outside firm, or this person came in, they got oodles of experience doing this, and they want to work in-house, they want to be an in-house counsel.
For practical purposes, that will work. I don't know if that's going to answer the questions that this board will have as to which one is better. You see what I mean? What you got is competition between
I
different
can see.
vendors.
I appreciate that.
All right, that's it. With that said,
There's better in a couple ways. There's better in my silly example over would you want this crew versus somebody who's only ever done traffic tickets. Clearly, that's better. There's better in a different way, which is more of a subliminal way, and it's what we were talking about is the bond. It's better in that I'm very comfortable with this person, I'm not as comfortable with that person. So to me, there's two factors. You have to pass the competency test. Can you do this? Have you done it? Do you know things about school board laws, rules? Can you quote a statute and section number? And how does the relationship work? To me, those are the two important pieces to it. You got to pass Part A, are you competent? Then you got to pass Part B.
So one thing that I think all of us, well, not one, a number of things that I think all of us want. Number one, whether it's in-house or out-of-house representation, we all want an attorney relationship similar to what we had with Mr. Brown.
Correct.
Number two, we all want the depth of knowledge to be the same, if not better, than what we've enjoyed and experienced with Mr. Brown, his previous firm, Mr. Brown, his current firm, and the team that's sitting before us tonight. I think we all agree on those key points.
Perfect world, that's right.
There's still the philosophical question, which I think, Mr. Soto, you've alluded to a little bit, is what is the right mechanism for us to rule in, rule out, which approach we take in or out or so on. I think we probably need to yield a little bit to Stacy at this point to allow her to share some of her thoughts and research and insights about what she sees being an attorney herself and understanding some of these aspects, and I know you are as well, and I certainly yield the respect to you for that. There's part of me that, I'm going to go back to where you were. I mean, there's part of me that still says whether or not the RFP process is the right vehicle that we use to vet this conversation out and really understand the pros and the cons. I need to understand the pros and the cons and how they're going to affect me over the next 4 years as a board member, whether or not I have in-house or out-of-house counsel. I want to know not only the cost factors associated with that and potentially the cost benefits associated with either one of those variables, as well as the scope of work that I'm able to receive or we're able to receive in the different forms of representation. And I'll be really frank to tell you, and I think all of us are in the same boat. We've never had in-house counsel as school board members. You've never had it. You've always had Mr. Brown. We all have always
This school district is, to my knowledge, has never had.
Okay. So we have to have that conversation.
Right.
And
My
Dr.
dad was
Pace
in
and I had a
the
conversation a couple of weeks ago, and one of the things that I think I brought up in that conversation was that one of the things that I very much like about not having an elected superintendent and having the type of representation that we have legal, and if we were to do an auditor, is that those people work directly for and are accountable directly to the school board. And at no point would I want to lose, you can call it that power or control if you want to call it that. That's not how I mentally frame it or view it. But I don't want to lose that connection and the important role that Mr. Brown has played for me as a board member, for us as a board, and for us as a district. Now, if we went to the idea of an in-house counsel, how would the mechanics of that play out? What would that look like, having somebody actually here day in and day out where they're around the superintendent? Would their desire become to satisfy the superintendent more than the school board, right? Would the roles and responsibilities get skewed along the way? Would the board still view that person as our representation, or we start to just kind of put it in the lump of 7,000 plus other employees in the district? We need to have some of those, even if they're not real, we need to at least explore and understand what the pros and cons associated with each of those are. I could honestly see benefits both ways. And you're right, the last thing I want to do is hire another employee in the school district just because we hire an employee in the school. That's meaningless to me. Yeah. I want to make sure that when we structure everything, that it's done in the best interest of the taxpayers, that it's done in the best interest of the students that we serve, and it's done in the best interest of the work the board's trying to achieve. How that plays out in this capacity, I'll be honest with you, I need to hear more about both sides of it, and I need to learn and understand more before I can make a decision. I'll also say this. Look, it's the nature of your business. You guys have to sit here and just kind of watch through glass of this really awkward conversation taking place. I want you guys to know, too, what I'm looking for in everything that I'm kind of working through and kind of thinking as I'm speaking and feeling this out. I'm hopeful, and I believe it'll be the case, that you guys want to continue to represent this board, not only today, but for the time to come, and that as we work through this, that we'd have the same level of commitment from you tomorrow that we have from you today when you walked in the door. Because as you sit there and you psychologically start going, well, the board is now talking about, do we do an RFP? Are we still going to be the team that they're going to use? Do they go in-house? What I want to make sure that I know and that you guys know is that your commitment to this board remains the same tomorrow as it was this morning, and that if we do an extension through the end of January, that we're going to get the type of representation that we need and we deserve all the way through the end of that contract. If the RFP ends up yielding a different result, it is what it is. You'll be a part of that conversation, obviously. But one thing I certainly don't want is I don't want you guys losing any hope in your opportunity to still serve this board and know that you're committed all the way through the end of whatever that contract's going to look like. I know you're obligated to, but I want you to. I want the personal side of you.
Just a minute. We're going to have our discussion, Stacy, and then I'm going to let Stacy tell us the process. And I know you want to make some comments, but
I just wanted to first say that, Kelvin, you're absolutely right in your comments and what you made. You kind of do need to decide whether you want inside counsel, in-house counsel, versus going with another firm, doing an RFP. When you kind of put it all together, it's a...
I'm sorry.
All right,
I was wrong there.
Okay.
I thought I asked you
You
that.
can, no, you can. You can do it. You're not wrong. You can do it, and it can work, but I agree that it is a harder process when you do it that way. You kind of need to have an idea. Do you want, and a lot of these people, Orange County, they have a hybrid. They do have in-house counsel, but again, they outsource a lot of stuff.
No in-house is going to do it all.
Right.
Nobody. I mean, I'm certainly not expecting.
You know, we looked at other counties, Pinellas, same thing. They have in-house attorneys, 2 school board attorneys, and 1 staff attorney. So they do the in-house, they do the hybrid as well. So, I mean, if you wanted
I can't imagine a case where it's not a hybrid.
Right. If you wanted
not
to,
unless you're going to have 25 attorneys.
To some extent.
Right.
Yeah.
And as she just mentioned, there are some districts that have designated school board attorneys and then a staff attorney, for example, who does things like ESE or whatever.
Right. So really it's kind of discussion. The first discussion is what is it you guys really are trying to accomplish.
Maybe we need to work through all those different formats as well.
And then, right, and that's, I don't know if you guys read this memo here, but it kind of gave you a quick overview instead of the big book that basically said, here are some advantages, here are some disadvantages. And when you look at in-house counsel, everything that Tim said is exactly who does that person report to? Is it a superintendent because it's an employee of the superintendent? How does that work with the board? You might lose that. There's a lot of, you know.
But in-house counsel in our setup is not an employee of the superintendent. I don't believe it's an employee of the school board. We can hire a superintendent, counsel, and an auditor. Correct. And Larry Brown was contracted with the school board and was the school board's attorney. He also did things for the superintendent stuff, but as the school board attorney.
And actually, Tim brought up something that is my biggest fear as well with in-house counsel, that they become more of staff counsel than they do school board council.
Mr. Booth, listen, I'll share with you. I'm not going to go through the details, but I've talked to many people. I've spent many hours on this for the past month. And I wanted to get both sides of things. I didn't put them in a concise memo for any of you. I would just say that you do this as well, because it is a different flavor depending on the culture. You know, so I specifically look for places like what Jay Wheeler described, and I look for the opposite. And I try to figure out, okay, what are the variables, and bring the understanding of that experience to how this board will react. So that's really what
and
goes.
I've had some conversations just
and that's
so you know,
really
and
goes.
That's where one of those fears
So
came from a conversation.
It is a very different dynamic. I don't see, my opinions, I don't see it working for this board. However, I mean, I could be wrong. I mean, you know, because, you know, people are flexible, and it's hard to predict how humans behave at any time. So,
yeah, and my only point with having both of them happen at the same time is I'm just ready to get this process move forward, move on. I mean, look, we talked about this before we did the superintendent search, when it was like we started in whatever it was. It seemed like it was a year later before we hired the superintendent,
but we had
and
time.
there was nothing actually happening until 1 or 2 days prior to those meetings that were scheduled with FSBA. I thought that the process took far too long. I don't live in this world where things take 6 months to get done. I live in a get it done world. Okay, so you know,
we have to get it right world when it comes to this,
and that's fine. I would disagree that it couldn't be done concurrently. However, if Stacy says that that's not the right approach to put an RFP out and give us everybody, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with taking the time, but let's go ahead and get it set up and get it done.
All right, but let's wait a second there, because I was going to let Stacy finish. Did
Right.
you,
To
or
that
did
end,
you?
to that end, we have put together an RFP. It's an RFP if you were looking for a firm.
Okay.
So if you wanted to look and see what other firms are out there besides the one that you currently have, we have an RFP in place. We need some questions answered on it, but we have something ready to go that you could put out there so you could start the process to say, okay, let's see what other firms can come in and bring this kind. And in between that time, you guys can probably still have the discussion with the Orange counties and the other counties just to say, hey, how is the in-house counsel working for me? You don't have to hire.
Just because you put it out on the street doesn't
Doesn't
mean
mean you have to fill it.
have to
Right.
fill it.
Right. So that sort of keeps the process moving if that's something you're interested in.
here's a comment about
Wait,
the in-house.
can we let Michael?
Well, it's very pertinent to this.
Okay, go ahead.
Here's a comment about the in-house counsel, and really because Tim Weishire really brought a little bit of insight to it. Here's the thing about it. You know, you got to be careful whether you're going to have a properly staffed law firm in your district as opposed to just someone who is doing pretty much what this board has been able to do. The reason that I feel like this just really wouldn't work out with us is because we're very we have a lot of expertise on this board. I see the dynamics when we go into our executive sessions, and quite honestly, you guys know a lot. You really know how to make decisions. You really get to the very important things. You ask incredible questions of counsel about trial strategy, about witness interviews. You guys really, really know a lot. That's almost what a lot of these other districts have when they have inside counsel. They have someone doing that part. And it's something that I see you guys enjoy a lot. So when you look at it, the hybrid models is you want an in-house counsel that you're going to consider to really do a lot of things. It's going to be one that's going to be doing a lot of things, not 1 or 2 people type of issue.
Real briefly, and I know we need to move on. Kelvin, I actually agree with you. I actually agree.
And that was my piece.
I actually agree that outside counsel is probably the best way to go. I just don't want to totally discount.
No, we'll talk about it.
Getting all the
we'll talk about it.
Well, if he's going to compliment us like that, we've got to agree with him.
Thank you.
Do you want to come to the table so you're on the mic?
Sure. Sure. And I appreciate the conversation.
Trash out.
We've been through this process before. You know, we have longtime clients. I still have my very first client. He was the first file number for Greenspoon Margaret. So you go through this evaluation process, and it's an important process. But what I would say to each of you is, I would have 5 clients. Everybody would have to have a level of trust and confidence in what we're doing. Like you said, Clarence, you want to have confidence in the person you're talking to if you have questions. The same would apply to every member of the board. We don't want to be legal counsel by default because it's somehow a legacy and a legacy issue because it's Larry, and it's Green Spoon Martyr that, we become employed or retain our position somehow by default. We want to be embraced by the board as your legal counsel. And that's why I'm not opposed. In fact, I think you're going in the right direction to reevaluate, the legal services, reevaluate what we're doing, and reevaluate whether our group is capable of serving your needs. So at the end of this process, if it turns out that it's Green Spoon Martyr, it will be because each of you have decided to hire us. It's not because of, we did this before for the last 25 years, so why not continue? That's a bad analysis when you say this is how we've always done it. I hate that this is how we always have done it analysis, and I do agree that if we're going to be your legal counsel, we want it to be because each of you have made a decision based upon a very careful and extensive vetting process that you want us. Because we really don't want to be legal counsel under any other circumstance, that we are actually wanted, that you trust us, and that you feel like we're the right decision for the board. So we are fully committed to that process, to you going through it. We think it's, whether you decide whether it's an in-house approach or an outside approach, I don't want to use the word outhouse, but, that's a...
We didn't mean that.
Yeah, that's a totally...
That's not that bad of a word.
That's not that bad of a word. But that's a totally different thing, And you have our commitment for however long this process takes, that we are going to be the same tomorrow and the week after as we were with Larry. You have our commitment that we're gonna do the same work. We're gonna be as diligent, as dedicated. Hopefully you'll get an opportunity to re-examine the relationship with on-the-job performance, so that when you go through this RFP, if that's the decision you make and the choice you make, you will have been able to have a hands-on experience with what we've been doing for whatever that period is. When you make your final decision, it'll be informed, it will be knowing, and it will be, hopefully a collective effort.
And you're in a good spot. We're going to have more information on you than anybody else.
Correct. And so I really do want that to be the process, because I feel it's the healthiest on a going forward basis if the decision turns out that we are retained. And if we're not, we're still going to do a great job in the interim.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Martyr.
Appreciate it.
So that's my piece.
Thank you.
I got something.
Go ahead, Rick.
How do we go about getting this process started then? How do we go about setting a workshop to talk about in-house and maybe having an in-house expert come in, or someone who is in-house, and then whether we go ahead and start the process and then don't fill it or delay it or however? I mean, again, I'm going to say it again. I want to get this done because I want to stop all this.
I got a question for Stacy and probably Kelvin both, maybe. I get that the RFPs would look different. Can you run simultaneous RFPs to where, okay, today at 2 o'clock, the in-house people come in, we interview them and talk to them, and at 3 o'clock, the outside counsel people come in, so we can do the evaluation somewhat simultaneously. I don't know where else, I mean, we can talk to like some people from Orange County or other school districts that have in-house. I mean, we know what outside counsel looks like and feels like. Everybody here knows that. So it's more getting somebody who can come in and kind of tell us, but is it better, y'all tell me what you think. Is it better to have somebody who's doing it today come in and tell us what they think, good, bad, and the ugly? Or is it to talk to people who would possibly want to do it?
That's you're asking the right question.
So,
would FS, I don't know, we could reach out to FSBA, or maybe not just them, but them and someone, because we really want we want at least, we want an unbiased opinion. That's very important.
Absolutely.
That's very important, and
everybody's biased.
Well, in an RFP process, that is absolutely true. So here's the thing. That's exactly the point, that we really need to come in and have some folks to share. I did, like I said, I used my time to figure that one out, But I think that it would be interesting if we had some some kind of I hate to use the word consultant. That's like the last thing I want to go ahead and say, because that means spending money, and none of us like to do that. But like I said, I shared with you already that I figured it out on my own, that I disfavor in-house counsel for the culture and for the. I'm sorry. No, inside.
No, he
disfavor. I disfavor. I'm sorry for using the double negative. Based on my research and my understanding of this board, our goals, the culture here, and so forth, but you have to reach that conclusion, and you want to know how. I don't know, FSBA. Anybody else has an idea that
we pay our dues to FSBA. They shouldn't have to pay.
Could they do an unbiased?
Tell us what in-house counsel is.
Because when it comes to them, I don't know about.
Well, it gets back to none of them have probably, with the exception of one, has been on the school board. I don't think.
I'm going to get you all phone number for board number.
Oh, yeah, so two have been on.
Yeah.
I don't know if they both had in-house, outside, or what they had.
I could potentially also reach out to Joy Frank, who is the counsel for the Superintendent's Association. I'll see her these next few days.
You could share this
She may
issue.
have some expertise in that regard. I mean, she's worked with a lot of superintendents, a lot of school boards.
And maybe she knows somebody who might come talk to us with a good experience and somebody that might come talk to us with a bad experience.
Now, the advantage of
I've got one of those.
An advantage of an unbiased consultant would be that they would research the district as well, and say, okay, here's the pros and cons, and really give you the both sides and says, now you pick your poison, sort of situation. It's.
I would probably.
How far do you want to go?
I would probably push back just a little bit. I don't know that I want to hire a consultant. I think we're all smart enough, savvy enough to do our independent research, and we could work through that on our own and save the cost of having to hire a consultant. It's not that it's a bad idea. I just don't know that I have a flavor for it.
I'm not.
Just so you know.
I'm for getting unbiased opinions.
Hey, look, exactly.
That's what I was saying. We pick somebody that's coming in with a biased good opinion, somebody with a biased bad opinion.
You guys can figure it out.
I mean, or good experience and bad experience, so you can kind of hear.
So you would want to potentially get maybe a school board chair from a district that has in-house and a school board chair that has outside counsel, maybe a couple of each or something, and maybe somebody like, I don't know who the counsel is for FSBA.
I don't know who their legal counsel. I don't know that I don't know that the counsel for FSBA.
Okay.
I would rather, if we're going to have a legal counsel come in, I'd rather get a school board attorney.
You want to talk?
Yeah, get Woody. Just because he's close.
I would recommend that you really want to get candid answers and really be able to ask questions.
Yeah. Do it one-on-one. And I talked to Woody, so I mean, I don't have any.
Good. Well, you have one experience.
Yeah.
You can.
So,
I've got.
Do you think, Kelvin, that we could do this? That we could get this process started and this could all work together and go forward?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I thought you were pushing back on that to begin with.
No, this is not a question of you wanting to settle the issue. I agree with you on that. It's just that there's a certain component here that I sense that the board members are really. You guys don't like to operate in a cloud ever. You want clarity, and you get it whichever way you think you're going to get it. Mm-hmm. And here you have a little bit of a cloud and saying, okay, you know what? We've only have this experience, and how do we get? And that was a question from Mr. Thacker. How do we get somebody to really tell us that, understands us, and will tell us and help us figure this out, whether we want to do this or not?
No,
so that's.
I agree.
And Tim figures that he can get that answer, and I agree with him. But the other option is to have a study, a consultant help you.
I can reach out to people and get mine.
And you want to do this, and with respect to the superintendent's suggestion, I think that because we're attorneys,
to do what you want us to do.
right? Well, that you really want candid answers on this. That's my personal.
I'm contacting a board member I know down south who's got an in-house counsel.
As opposed to having somebody on a hot chair.
Yeah, but I mean, to get back to the mechanism of this, can we start it now, as we say here in this document?
Yeah, we got an RFP.
But I mean, can we do it for both?
So what I
Because
think I'm
it'd
hearing
be
you
interesting.
say.
Oh, wait a minute, Sarah.
Yeah, one comment. Cheryl just wants to remind you guys about the
once we put an RFP out on the street, there's a no contact clause in there for anyone that could potentially want to be responding to that RFP, couldn't be coming and talking to board members or doing any workshop presentation.
Yep.
So
Good
we
point.
really,
Yeah, that's
you
good.
really
That's a
do
good
need to think about.
So
how you wanna
Greenspoon would want us to
structure it.
start the
If you're not
RFP
totally
process
ready
now,
to
right?
So what if we do, and
But that doesn't have to do with them.
No,
though,
not
does
them
it?
at all.
Yeah.
No,
No,
that
it doesn't.
excludes them.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
what if we agree we're gonna do an RFP process, but we don't issue it until November 9th? And,
We have our next regular
us time.
meeting is on October the 4th, and there is no workshop scheduled for that day. We could potentially reconvene a workshop on October the 4th. That would give you guys 2 weeks to
we do that at
do
4:30? I don't think
your-
it's gonna take us that long.
to do your private interviews, conversations, kind of reach some conclusion about, yes, we want to do an RFP for outside counsel. No, we want to start the process for inside counsel. I can send you a draft job description from another district of a staff attorney. I don't know if you found one for like school board attorney in Orange. I don't know if they have a
Orange
job
can-
description
yeah, I'm
or
sure they can
something.
send
Order
us
from
one for
Collier,
Whitney.
just so I can give you her number. She's got an in-house
And
attorney.
Pinellas has one too.
What we can also do is to give to you today the draft RFP, because there will be some places in there. She framed it based on our current contract for legal services. There may be some different criteria that you want to add, take out, clarify. And so that then on October the 4th, we could come prepared to, as a board, you guys give us your decision on which way you want to go, and we can move forward from there. Does that make sense?
Yep. That sounds
We
good.
schedule workshop for 4:30? I don't think, do y'all tell me what you think? Do you think this would be a long conversation on that?
You go to 4, we could be done by 5, have a, half an hour. Get coffee,
Tanya, does
get
that
ready.
work for you? October the 4th at 4 o'clock?
And that's what's gonna make the decision.
Okay, but in the meantime, let us give you again some of these things in advance so that you'll have a chance to look through it, ask
Can I
us
give
any
these
questions that you
electronically
have
also, please?
between now and then.
Are you here on the 4th, Joe? You out?
To me?
Shay, he's out.
He's
Fourth,
out till
I mean,
next
yeah, I'm here
week.
that week, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The following week I won't be here.
Why can't I get to my
So
calendar?
we're gonna schedule it for 4 o'clock?
And then if you have questions or comments, you can email me or Stacy in between, and then we go out for
Are
there.
these both for me?
Yeah, one is the RFP, and the other one is a draft contract that would have to go as an attachment. So I just drafted a general scope, but again, you guys can determine. We would need to know who you guys want on the committee. We were assuming that you
I'm
guys would
assuming
want to
it's
be,
5
it'd
of
be
them.
plus 2 others to make it 7. So we have a good, probably the superintendent and one other person.
Why do we need anyone besides the 5 of us?
Right.
The board, they work
We're the
for
ones
us.
hiring them.
Yeah, they hire.
Okay, the 5
Yeah,
is fine. Those are the kind of questions we need answers to. So,
That was
And
an
the funny
interesting-
thing
that was
is,
an
you're about to get all
interesting
5 of us saying the same
question.
thing.
Yeah,
What?
you were like, what?
but you'll see the highlighted areas. We would need answers to as far as what the weight you would want for each of the criteria.
Because that's one of the advantages of an RFP is that you don't necessarily have to choose the respondent with the lowest price.
Right,
You
the
can
lowest
weight
price.
things more heavily, like experience,
Sure.
Yeah.
depth of knowledge that, are more important to
This is
you.
good work.
Yeah, thank you. As a matter of fact, and Cheryl, she does an amazing job on our RFPs. You can't go over 50% on the fee schedule. So the fees would not be more than 50% of your weighted
And I
score.
just sent each one of you, the board member in Collier County, her name, and she gave you a call.
Okay, so October 4th, we're getting together.
October
make a decision.
4th, during the interim, in the next 2 weeks, we will all make contacts as we desire to get a little background and feeling.
Did we agree on extending
I-
contract through,
I-
okay.
At the board meeting tonight, I will ask you to
February?
consider a motion probably to extend the,
February 1st.
through January 31st, February 1st, whatever that happens to be. We'll take a vote on that, whether, based on your pleasure there.
And I don't know if you need, I just made a copy of Orange County. This is their,
Yeah.
just a copy of
Yeah.
their legal service RFP that they have out. And again,
And
they
you can
have,
send all
it's
this
a hybrid.
electronically.
I electronically send it
Okay.
to you guys, so you guys will have.
I like
Very good, very good.
Let me just
Also send
briefly
to this
say
email address.
to the board as well that I appreciate you being understanding of my travel plans and not making any decisions while I wasn't here.
We made a bunch of them, but
Yeah,
they
well,
they only
any
impacted you.
decision on this, anything else is fine, but
Hey, I
do
tried to say
appreciate it.
September
Yeah,
20th.
Just so, yeah,
To get you back,
I
big
appreciate
guy.
it.
But they wanted to take a motion about your appearance, and I told them we had a table there.
Yeah, well, I only deal with what God
Is
gave me.
anyone surprised
All
at
right.
the robust discussion that we've had this afternoon?
I think we are about
Yeah,
done.
we-
Mr. Marner, do you
yeah,
have
you
any
forget
other
that you're on
comments
tape,
before
okay.
we?
Because everybody here performed well, I really appreciate it.
What did I do? Did I make my
No, I
notes
just
right?
appreciate the dialogue.
Yes, Ricky, you did.
I'm proud of you guys.
Reiterate what you said about this extending the contract where it stands.
I said at the board meeting, we have a spot on the agenda, and we'll be making a recommendation to extend their contract to January 31st for the board's review and vote.
Very good.
With that, anything else, board? Superintendent? Workshop is adjourned.
And gentlemen, there is food in your office to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month.
Yeah.
And since we knew it was
It
going to be
better
a
be.
long day,
I know Ricky wants some of
I
that.
love it, man.
Mofongo.
Extra
Tanya
condiments for me, please.
and
With
Kim
caldo.
taking good care of it.